Good morning. Welcome to Glendale City Council Budget Workshop Session. Here we go again, March 3rd, 2026. Meeting is called to order. We'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Baldenegro, Councilmember Conscious,
Present.
Councilmember Guzman,
Here.
Councilmember Tomchop,
Here.
Councilmember Turner, Vice Mayor,
Present.
and I'm present. If Mr. Baldenegro makes it in, if you'd take note of that, please. Ms. Bauer, if you'd go ahead and introduce our item, please.
Fiscal year 2026-27 budget workshop.
Need some coffee, Ray?
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Once again, we're here as part of our budget process to discuss the 27 through 36 fiscal year 10-year capital improvement plan. And as part of that presentation, I will turn over the remainder of this presentation to our budget administrator, Mr. Jonathan Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Good morning, Mayor and Council. What you see before you is the agenda. We will review the capital improvement plan overview, just explaining what a capital improvement plan is, and then we'll review the projects. And then if you have any questions regarding any specific project, feel free to ask at that time. Before we begin, I just wanted to highlight something in the book that I provided that you guys have with you today for the council CIP workshop. As you know, we got a new budget system, Questica, and every new system comes with its growing pains. So there's a section of that in the individual projects where it has the fiscal year 21 through 25 actuals, and then also the FY26 budget. Looks like that information may be incorrect. So this morning I handed out a separate spreadsheet. And so this spreadsheet has the fiscal year 25 or 26 adopted budget, as well as how much was spent on each project from FY21 through 25. So I forgot, sorry about that information. Next, I'll go over the budget calendar. So today is March 3rd. We're going to review the CIP plan. And then March 30th, we'll come back to review the operating. And I passed out those operating binders for those reports for the March 30th. And that is a Monday. And then we'll come back with the entire budget on April 14th. And then we have 3 voting meetings. May 12th is the tentative. June 9th is the final budget adoption and property tax levy. And then June 23rd is property tax adoption. So next we'll review what exactly is a capital improvement plan. So a capital improvement plan is a 10-year roadmap for creating, maintaining, and paying for current and future capital needs. CIP projects typically cost more than $50,000 and have a useful life of 5 or more years. Some examples are public safety facilities, other city buildings such as City Hall, then we got city parks, rec centers. It can also be water and wastewater plants, streets, drainage or flood control projects, and also any large major equipment like fire trucks. So this slide represents the life cycle of a vertical construction project. So think of City Hall. The different phases are study, design, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, or FF&E for short, and then the project completion. So the first phase, study, that involves assessing the project needs and feasibility, preparing preliminary cost estimates, and evaluating alternatives. This usually takes between 4 to 6 months. Then we go on to the design phase. Details, plans, and specifications for the projects are developed. This includes architectural and engineering designs that will guide the construction process. Then we move on to construction of the actual building or the implementation phase where the physical work of the project takes place. And that includes excavation, building structures, installing utilities, ensuring compliance with safety and regulation standards, and making sure the facility meets the design specification and project goals. Then we move on to FF&E. After construction, the project site is equipped with necessary furniture, fixtures, and equipment and to make it fully functional. Then the final phase is project completion. This phase involves ensuring that the project has been completed according to plan and is functioning as intended. An official handover of the project to the city, and the project becomes fully operational. And then this is a life cycle of a horizontal construction project, such as a street or a park. As you can see, it's very similar. The only difference is there's no FF&E involved in this type of construction project. Next, we'll move on to some examples of some CIP projects. This one should look pretty new to all of you guys. I believe the ribbon cutting was just a couple weeks ago on February 21st, and this is North Bonsall Park. This is an example of a multi-year project coordinated between many internal departments. Next, we have an active project, 59th Avenue Waterline Replacement. This is repairing and replacing water lines from Glen Drive to Northern. This is a active project you probably saw on your way in and expected to be completed in May of '26. Here we have Fire Station 153. The original station was built in 1974. So this project was a complete replacement of the old 2-bay fire station and transformed it into a 3-bay facility. And here are the replacement of the water chillers at the main library, where they're converted to air-chilled. And I believe the facilities is here. I believe this was the first project where the supervisors had a bird's eye view. No? No? All right. All right. So why do we do capital planning? Strategic planning, the CIP provides a structural approach to planning and prioritizing major infrastructure projects such as roads, parks, public buildings, and utilities. This ensures that resources are allocated effectively and projects are aligned with council's and the community's long-term goals and needs. Next, we have fiscal management. By outlining the anticipated costs and funding sources for each project over a multi-year period, the CIP helps manage our finances more effectively and allows for better budgeting, forecasting, and avoids unexpected expenses. Then we have community involvement, community improvement. Capital improvement plans focus on projects that enhance the quality of life for residents. This includes improving public safety, transportation, recreation facilities, and parks. Transparency and accountability. A 10-year CIP promotes transparency by providing a clear and public plan for capital expenditures, and it allows residents to see where their tax dollars are being spent. Risk management. A CIP helps identify and mitigate risk associated with aging infrastructures such as water main breaks or deteriorating roads. Proactive investments in infrastructure maintenance and upgrades can prevent costly emergency repairs in the future. And also the leveraging funding. Many capital projects can be funded through various sources, including grants, bonds, and development impact fees. The CIP helps identify and leverage these funding opportunities to maximize investments. So why do we do capital planning? It's a part of the city's council's financial policies. The city's financial policy on capital asset and debt management specifies that we will address capital needs in the following order. First, to improve existing assets, and then replace existing assets as needed, and then the third option would be construct new assets. And having a long-term capital improvement plan is also considered a best practice by GFOA. So this flow chart shows the process of developing the 10-year capital improvement plan. The first step, the staff develops a 5-year financial forecast, which we presented to you at the end of January. The departments work with engineering, field operations, budget and finance, and other departments to develop project scope and timelines. The projects are submitted to budget and finance where we evaluate funding sources. We review the available funding, project and debt issuance timing, operational impacts of capital projects, and propose a balanced capital improvement plan to council, which we're doing today. And then any changes from today's discussion will be evaluated using the same financial models, and staff will bring those changes back to council at the April 14th budget workshop. And council adopts a 10-year CIP as part of the budget adoption process, beginning with the tentative adoption in May. Next, I'll turn it over to Ms. Lindsay to review the CIP funding.
Good morning, Mayor and members of council. The CIP is funded with many different funding sources. As mentioned on the previous slide, although council adopts a 10-year CIP, only the first year is appropriated as part of the budget. The most common funding sources are cash, which can be from fund balance or revenues, bond proceeds, which are received as revenue when issuing debt, Grants, which can be state, regional, or federal grants. ARPA funding is an example of grant funding we received from the federal government. And carryover, which we will go into in more detail on the next slide. Projects that are funded with general obligation bond categories of library, government facilities, and parks all require additional bond authorization through a bond election. So what is carryover? Carryover is funding that is carried over from one fiscal year to the next. It occurs when a project takes more than 1 year. Budget and Finance works with departments during the budget development to estimate the carryover from the current fiscal year 26, to the upcoming fiscal year of fiscal year 27. If a project has carryover, the carryover funds remain in the same project and funding source. Carryover is adjusted after the fiscal year is closed when all prior fiscal year expenses have been recorded. And some common reasons that carryover occurs could be project delays from supply chain issues, projects that just take more than 1 year. And for example, if the total budget of a project is $1 million and the department estimates they're gonna spend $200,000 in the current year, $800,000 will be carried over to the following year. However, if all the invoices are paid from the prior year, Budget and Finance determines $300,000 was spent instead of the $200,000, they will adjust the carryover in the upcoming fiscal year by $100,000. So this next slide, I'm going to go through what you're going to see on the project slides throughout the remainder of the presentation. The projects that are highlighted in yellow are the new projects proposed by the departments. And the dollar amounts that are in blue indicate that additional bond voter authorization is needed for those projects. And as I mentioned previously, parks, library, and government facilities all need additional bond authorization. The next 3 slides list the different funding sources that we use to fund the capital improvement plan. First of which are development impact fees, or DIF, as commonly referred to for short. Development impact fees are one-time charges to developers for new development in the city of Glendale and can only be used for new or expanded infrastructure. General obligation bonds, or GO bonds as we commonly refer to them, are debt issuance that has to be authorized by voters. We have several programs of GO bonds, including streets, public safety, parks, government facilities, open space and trails, libraries, and flood control. The debt service for general obligation bonds is paid by secondary property tax. Then we have grant-funded projects. Grants can be federal, local, or state grant funding and often require a match. And pay-as-you-go funds are cash-funded projects. That's cash that we have in fund balance. These next funding sources may sound familiar as we briefly discussed these funds during the 5-year forecast presentation on January 27th. For special revenue funds, we have transportation sales tax, which is a half-cent sales tax and is used to improve service for all modes of transportation. Highway user revenue funds, commonly referred to as HERF, is a restricted special revenue fund that can be used for right-of-way acquisition, construction, reconstruction, maintenance, and repair of our roads. Next, we have our enterprise funds, the water, sewer, landfill, and solid waste funds. They're supported by revenues paid by the users of those services. The next 4 slides show all of the different fund numbers that make up the funding source categories that I just discussed. We have 2 different fund numbers in the pay-as-you-go funds that are in the capital improvement plan, 1080, which is the general government capital projects, and 2110, which is the Arts Commission. We also have several fund numbers for our general obligation bond funds. We have separate fund numbers for each bond issuance. This slide shows all the development impact fees in the CIP. The first 4 digits of the line are the fund numbers, followed by the specific program that those fees can be used for. The last 4 digits are the year that we implemented those impact fees. And as previously mentioned, these funds are used for new or expanded infrastructure. This slide includes all of our special revenue funds, including HERF, transportation sales tax, transportation in lieu, and the grip stick revenue fund. And this last slide lists our enterprise user fee fund numbers and our grant fund numbers.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
Just real quickly, could you give that to us in a cheat sheet form, maybe at the next budget meeting or at the next council meeting that we got last year? I don't know if it's the same or not, I haven't compared it, but it'd be great for everyone to have this.
Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Tom Troff, we can definitely provide you that information.
Mayor, I was just going to add sort of to Councilmember Tomolchoff's point. The reason we give you these numbers is because on some of the reports, now on the newer reports that we have from the new system, it tells you the name of the fund, and so it's kind of nice because you don't necessarily need to translate, but sometimes going back and forth on the documents, it's easier to have this like as a cheat sheet, so you know, okay, that number is a diff fund, that number is an enterprise fund, that number is a special revenue fund, et cetera. And we did, as Ms. Lindsay said, we started putting a new fund number for each new bond issue. That helps us a lot to track them, but it doesn't make it mean that there are more fund numbers for the bond issues now. They're in sequence, and so, but it's a code. It's kind of like a code system, and you kind of have to know the code, so we're giving you a translator for the code for those numbers is essentially what that is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that brings us to, this is a pie chart that represents the current fiscal year, so the 2026 10-year adopted CIP by project type. The total fiscal year 26 through 35 CIP is approximately $2.4 billion. And as you can see on the chart, water is the largest portion of the CIP at $737 million, or 32% of the CIP, followed by streets at 21% and public safety at 14%. Those three combined account for 67% of the CIP. So this next pie chart represents the fiscal year 27 proposed 10-year CIP by project type. The total fiscal year 27 through 36 CIP is approximately $2.8 billion. And as you can see on the chart, water is the largest portion of the CIP at $851.8 million, or 30% of the CIP, followed by streets at 24% and public safety at 13%. And those three combined account for 67% of the CIP. This pie chart represents the entire fiscal year 27 through 36 proposed CIP shown by funding source. The largest funding source is enterprise funds at $1.3 billion, or 45%, followed by bonds at 23% and special revenue funds at 16%. Those top three funds account for 84% of the funding for the proposed fiscal year 27 through 36 CIP. And this next slide is the proposed amount to be appropriated as part of the fiscal year 27 budget for the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 27 only, at $430 million. Of this amount, $217 million is estimated carryover and $213 million is new requested funding for projects. Streets, water, and public safety take up the majority of the fiscal year 27, totaling $244 million, or 57%. And streets is the most significant project type for fiscal year 27 at $93 million, or 22%, followed by water at 18% and public safety at 17%. Which brings us to our first program that we'll go through. So this is the fiscal year 27 through 36 water CIP overview. Water is 18% of the fiscal year 27 first year proposed CIP. Water funding is mostly from water user fees or enterprise funds, and 1% of the program is made up from development impact fees. Water capital improvement plan priorities are to provide water supply from multiple sources, maintain a resilient and secure infrastructure, and meet all federal and state regulations. Some of the major projects in the first 5 years for water are the rehab of water lines, booster stations, and reservoirs. These are the funding sources for the water projects, and as you can see, the Water Enterprise Fund, Fund number 6020, is the vast majority of the funding for the projects. The 10-year total CIP for water is $852 million. And these next three slides list the individual projects within the water program. And before we continue, are there any projects that council would like to discuss as part of the water program?
Carol?
Ask a question here. I can bring this back as a council item of special interest, but in light of some of the proposed legislation, I believe it's going to go to the voters. It's going to bypass the governor about moratorium on city rates. But at some point in the future, we're going to probably have to have a discussion about maybe because I know our rates are built into our ability to pay for these projects. So if we're frozen at 5 years, we're gonna have to bring that back before, at least in time to be able to figure out whether we need to escalate some of the adopted rate increases we've already done, so that we're able to finish these projects. So I think it just and we got some new council members here too that need to understand that, this is based on rate increases that we've already adopted that we may or may not be able to actually do. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
That brings us to the fiscal year 27 through 36 wastewater program. Wastewater is 9% of the fiscal year 27 year one proposed CIP. Wastewater funding is mostly sewer user fees or enterprise sewer user fees and is 1% of development impact fees. Wastewater capital improvement plan priorities are to maintain a resilient and secure infrastructure and to meet all federal and state regulations. And some of the major projects in the first 5 years for wastewater are to rehab sewer lines, manholes, and lift stations, the 91st Avenue wastewater treatment plant, rehabilitate West Area Water Reclamation Facility, sorry about that, and Arrowhead Water Reclamation Facility improvements. This next slide shows the funding sources for the wastewater projects. And as you can see, Fund 6030, which is the Sewer Enterprise Fund, is the majority of the funding for the projects. The total 10-year CIP for wastewater is $289 million. And these next two slides list the individual projects for wastewater, and before we continue, are there any specific projects that council would like to discuss in this program? All right, moving right along. Next is the transit program. Transit is about 1% of the fiscal year 27 proposed first year CIP. It's 69% transportation sales tax and 31% grants. Transit projects in this program include bus stop enhancements, bus fleet replacement, and the North Glendale Park and Ride project. Transit has two funding sources, transportation sales tax and grants, and the total 10-year capital improvement plan for transit is $10.6 million. This slide shows the 4 individual projects within the transit program. And are there any projects within this program that council would like to discuss?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mary. I do have a question. Are we going to be adding, I know there's funding, but I don't see it listed as one of the projects. And we're adding, at least we're proposing about $110,000 increase in bus pullouts. Are we going to be adding any? I mean, bus pullouts are really great for traffic flow, so I don't know if we have any proposed additions to bus pullouts. The one on Union Hills has been awesome to help keep traffic moving, especially near that school. So, thank you, Prab.
Mayor and council, we do have a program of bus pullouts that is part of, it shows in the streets category. Because in the world of transit and streets, it's more to keep the traffic flowing. So that's why it's shown under the streets category. And there is an ongoing program to add more bus pullouts. And they're prioritized based on the number of travel lanes that are available and also the amount of traffic.
That brings us to the streets program. Streets is 22% of the fiscal year 27 proposed CIP. It's funded by several different funding sources. 54% of the projects are funded by special revenue funds, which include transportation sales tax and HERF, also general obligation bonds, development impact fees, grants, and there's 1% of it funded by general fund. Some of the streets projects in the proposed CIP include 59th Avenue from Camelback to Loop 101, the pavement management program, street reconstruction of 67th Avenue from Beardsley to Pinnacle Peak, and 83rd Avenue from Glendale Avenue to Northern Avenue. And Streets is requesting 5 new projects as part of this proposed CIP. Streets projects are funded by several different funding types. The next 2 slides list all the individual funding sources for the street CIP. The 10-year CIP total for streets is $673 million. And as you can see on this slide, there are there's our projects in fiscal year 31 and 32 that require additional bond authorization.
Is that why it's highlighted in blue?
Yes, that's correct.
Alright. Maybe your iPad's colorblind.
Mayor, members of the council, that there are two different documents that we have. One is a digital copy of the binder that you have, and the other is the set of slides. I believe it's blue on the slides presentation, but it wasn't created and made blue inside your.
You have it. Yeah, okay. 43.
And with that, these next 10 slides list the individual streets projects, and with that, are there any questions about any of the projects within the streets program that council would like to discuss?
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
I don't know, I can't tell which one he's looking at. Would you like to go first, madam? You may if you'd like. On slide 52, you mentioned the 59th Avenue from Camelback to the Loop 101. Is that a reconstruction project? Is it a mill and overlay project? Is it surfacing, or is it a mix? What are the, generally speaking, not segment, but what are we looking at?
Mayor and council, 59th Avenue, Camelback to Loop 101 is a corridor project that was identified years ago, and some of those improvements have been completed. Some are underway. As an example, 59th Avenue, Glendale to Olive is under design. But the rest of the corridor, we did a design concept report, a concept 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We will update that this year, but we have regional funding under Proposition 479 to do the corridor improvement. So as part of that corridor concept report, it'll be intersection improvements, it'll be turn lanes, and it'll be some pavement projects.
Thank you, Pareb. So for the section that you just happened to mention, from Glendale to Olive, is that a reconstruction or a mill and overlay in there?
It's a mill and overlay, Mayor,
Okay.
council member.
Very good, thank you.
Yes, the 83rd Avenue from Glendale to Northern project. I know that we met about it. Where are we on that? Is the design finished? This $4 million that we show here, that's estimated carryover, that's for the completion of that strip, right?
Georgie will speak on this.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and the Council. Thank you for mentioning that project. We had discussion a few months ago about that one. Where we are right now, design is completed 90%. We are waiting for all right-of-way acquisitions to be done. Then we would send to the design team, and the last 10% will be quick completion. We are in the process of acquiring 3 properties right now that want to work with us, and there are 2 that definitely will need some assistance from the legal team on the possible condemnation, because they're very convoluted. One property has like a multiple liens on it.
Yeah.
One neighbor absolutely don't want to communicate with us. They believe that they're in county and they don't want to have to do anything with Glendale. So we'll need some assistance on that one. It's not as easy as most of people think. It's not just road construction. That is something that after a while we are actually expanding the road, obtaining right of way to be on the city side, so we can widen that road and make it way more usable than it is right now. Unfortunately, we are getting a lot of emails from angry neighbors, and we are
So
very
am I.
transparent. We are very transparent and honest with them. We are telling them hardships and stuff, but we appreciate any help from you, council member. You really helped us out basically so far, and we hope that you are going to keep helping us with that one. So
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because I'm getting those emails too.
yeah.
But I'm just curious, I see that you have some totals here in 27 and 28. So are we looking that it's going to take up till 28 to complete it?
I believe that will be the last piece that will be paid in 2028. We'll expedite everything that we have on our side, but we have also some limitations. Bid and award is 3 months. We cannot expedite that process. But I believe once we have design, we'll be able to push and expedite everything we can to be sooner.
So when do you think you'll have the design finished?
We are waiting right away acquisitions to be completed by the end of this year, and probably by March, we should have everything available for bid and award.
Of next year?
Yeah,
Okay, all right, thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Perhaps another question for you, if I might. So when I came on the council 11-some years ago, along with Councilmember Tomachoff and former Vice Mayor or Councilmember Aldama, we all had been out walking the neighborhoods, of course, and I think we all agreed that one of the top 5, if not top 3, concerns of our residents was the condition of our neighborhood streets, and they were absolutely right. So we, within a year or two, adopted a street resurfacing program. Our pavement management program had a data-driven scientific approach to it, and we went out and we touched every residential street in the city that needed it, or they all needed it. So we touched every residential street and got them up to a standard. Coincidentally, I think my neighborhood was the last one in the city that got done, which I was fine with, but it got done, and then we went back through to start over at the beginning and treat the streets again, and now my neighborhood has just got crack seal, which is typically the precursor to a surface treatment. So that means now we've done, if the math in my mind is working right, we are completing the second go-round in 11 years of addressing our residential streets. Along the way, we've also been doing our arterial streets. But I know, like 59th Avenue, our arterial streets still need attention. So I'm just going to throw it out there. Something perhaps we might consider so that we could apply more money to the arterial and the half-mile streets would be doing a 1-year delay on the neighborhood street program and take the money that would have been allocated that year and put it into the arterial and collector streets, and then the next year resume where we left off with the neighborhood streets. So I'm doing you a great injustice because I'm just throwing this out at you and no conversation ahead of time, and I guess I'm really not looking for an official opinion or anything. It's just been on my mind, and perhaps it's something your department could consider and decide whether or not we can do that. I know that maintenance on our streets is crucially important because it delays the decomposition of the street. But if we are in a phase where transferring a year, just shifting the money for 1 year and then picking up where we left off would actually get us more mileage on our arterials and collectors done, I just think it might be worth considering. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, thank you. We'll take that into consideration.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question, because there's 2 projects on here. There's Project 24068, 67th Avenue, Beardsley to Pinnacle Peak. And then there's another project, I'll have to find the there's a separate project, Deer Valley to Pinnacle Peak. So can you explain that to me?
Mayor
Is
and
one
Council,
each direction or something?
yes, Mayor and Council, there are 2 separate projects for the 2 miles north of the 101, along 67th Avenue. It is basically Beardsley to Deer Valley is the first mile, and Deer Valley to Pinnacle Peak is the second mile. The first mile, Beardsley to Deer Valley, is an additional northbound lane. You have 3 southbound lanes and 2 northbound lanes today. There's traffic concerns, so adding the lane is to address that traffic concern. The mile north of it has 2 lanes in each direction. And the project is a federally funded project, so different funding sources. On that one, we have 2 lanes in each direction, and the project is to add 1 lane in each direction. So that would make it consistent with what we are doing on the south, and also what Peoria is going to have north of that segment.
Yeah,
And because of the right, and because of the different funding sources, we are not able to combine those projects.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mayor, I have another question. Mayor.
Move your microphone
Yeah,
closer.
put your,
Okay. There, is that better?
Way
Yes.
better.
Okay. I'm not looking at it on the screen. In my book, I see one on 99th Avenue in Glendale. Looks like it's an estimated carryover of $1,353,000. What is being done there on 99th? It's from Glendale Avenue to Northern on 99th Avenue.
Could I have the page?
It's in our book, it's page 68. I don't see it on here.
I don't have the page, but I can speak
Okay, on
in
the
the.
screen, it's page 48.
Okay, I can speak, I see it on the screen now. There is not a, so the project is, 99th Avenue today does not have consistent 2 lanes in each direction. There's developments that are going to add lanes along the west side, which is southbound lanes. Northbound, there's no development. City owns that long parcel on which the park and ride is. So we have the project to basically make it a consistent 2 lanes in each direction between Glendale and Northern.
Okay. And then there's another one here. I believe I saw 83rd Avenue and Cardinals Way, a light. I think you guys completed that already. I saw it on here.
Mayor and council, that is correct. The project is complete. We had some payments that were happening this fiscal year. So finance right now is showing in the budget book potential carryover because they're looking at what is not encumbered in a project.
Oh, okay.
That's what is left on the project. Once the project is closed and the year is done, it'll go away.
Okay, that's why it's on here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. On bus pullouts, it shows on slide, which slide is this? 54. It's showing fiscal year 27, 366,800. And then, and I know you haven't told us what this is yet, but the proposed amount is different on here than it is in the slide deck. It's proposed 454,270.
Mayor and council, I can explain that. If you see on the slides, carryover is a separate column and FY27 is a separate column.
Okay.
In the budget book, those two are shown in FY20, under FY27.
Okay, that's the amount that's available in fiscal year 27. Thank you.
That brings us to the fiscal year 27 through 36 solid waste program. Solid waste is 2% of the fiscal year 27 one-year proposed CIP. It is 100% funded by user fees within the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund. And Solid Waste CIP is, their program is focused on vehicle replacements and following industry standard replacement cycles. This slide shows the funding source for solid waste, which again is the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund. Their projects are funded through that exclusively, and their 10-year CIP is $68 million. This slide, next slide lists the 8 individual solid waste projects. And are there any questions on the solid waste program?
Mayor? Yes, thank you, Mayor. Regarding the street sweepers, I've received a few concerns from residents regarding the quality of the sweeping that happens. And I know there are different types of sweepers out there. So we have a pretty aggressive, it looks like, replacement program. Are we looking at improving the technology as we are updating our sweepers?
Mayor and Council, Councilmember Malinar, before we buy any sweeper or any piece of equipment, we always are looking at the technology on that. Sweepers are one of the pieces of equipment that are, depending on the material out there, can be very difficult to pick up. So we are always evaluating the sweepers to make sure that we're getting the best that we can for the amount we're spending.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the concern that seems to come across is that when the sweepers come through, they leave kind of a track, I guess. I don't know if there's any way to help remedy that. And I think it's, you run across some very
bad areas, and then it kind of carries over to the next area. Is there any process or that you can look into to try to clean up the brushes or whatever is causing that?
So, Mayor, Councilmember Melnar, without getting too technical, there are two basic types of sweepers. There's a vacuum and then there's a mechanical broom. The vacuum would be a little bit better, however, then if you're running across items, pieces of cardboard, palm fronds, anything like that, it would jam up the vacuum. So we have to look at what's best for all our applications. And there has been times after storms and that type of thing where we've gone along with the sweeper and it doesn't look good, and we send the sweeper back through.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
I have a question. Yeah, I have a quick question. What is a street sweeper cost?
Mayor and Councilmember Guzman, what you see there for fiscal year '27, $444,000 is approximately the amount for one sweeper 1 year. The next year, we've got two programmed in. You can see we've got an inflationary factor. So in FY '29, that would be one sweeper again. And just to note, we budget the full amount for the cost of the sweeper, but we always apply for grants. And if we do get the grant, then we spend the money, but then we get the reimbursement through the grant for the sweeper.
Also, in the last 3 years, how many sweepers have you had to replace?
I don't know exactly what we've done over the past 3 years. Typically, we're looking at one a year, and then every 8 years or so, we add a second one in.
And how many do we have?
I have to get back to you. We've got two different programs. We've got the arterial and the residential. I just don't have the numbers in front of me.
Yeah, I'd like
so-
to know how many we have. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Patanko, while you're there, talking about street sweepers, you guys have been really successful in grants, having sweepers paid for over the years. Do you know approximately how many sweepers have actually been bought and paid for by these different grants? I know it's been pretty substantial.
Mayor and Council, Mayor, I'm not aware of any sweeper we've purchased through solid waste where we've not been grant reimbursed over the past 10 years.
Okay, that was sort of the point I wanted to make. But we still got a budget like we have to pay for it, so,
That's correct.
yeah, very good.
And there is a small match with the grant as well.
Very good, thank you.
That brings us to the fiscal year 27 through 36 public safety CIP overview. Public safety is 17% of the fiscal year 27 first year proposed CIP. It's funded through several different funding sources. The largest is general obligation bonds at 67%, followed by general fund at 18%, special revenue funds at 11%, and development impact fees at approximately 4%. Some of the public safety projects include the police crime lab, the Gripstick CIP program, which is basically a master plan, Fire Station 1510, which is near the airport, fire apparatus replacement, and the main public safety building renovation. And public safety is requesting one new project as part of this capital program.
Say the last thing you just said.
That public safety is requesting one new project as part of their CIP. This next slide shows all the different funding sources for the public safety program. The total 10-year CIP for public safety is $374 million. And as you can see in fiscal years 30, 31, and then 32 through 36, or the out years, we do require additional voter authorization in general obligation bonds. These next several slides are the public safety projects within the Public Safety Fund. Are there any projects that council would like to discuss as part of this program?
Yeah, I do have one. I had brought up, I don't even know how long ago, it's probably been a year ago, I think, the indoor shooting range, with the opportunity that we may be able to get, I don't know if we call it DOD or DOW, but to pick up that cost and then work with the city of Glendale to give our officers an opportunity to train more frequently, stay more proficient in a setting that's more comfortable for them indoors rather than outdoors. That project has been slow, incredibly slow, but I would like us to push forward. Whatever happens, that we still do an indoor range our city manager today has experience with building a range. At the same time, if we can work this out with Luke, wonderful. If we can't, we still owe that, I think, to our officers and to our citizens. Everybody's looking at everybody.
Well,
so.
Yeah,
I was
but-
gonna wait for
I think the
Rick.
Who wants
question
to
is
answer?
there a request in the statement?
Excuse me?
Is there a request in the statement? Are you
I
requesting
want
a
us to move
project?
forward with building an indoor shooting range.
Mayor, I'd like to respond to that if I could, Mayor.
Likewise.
Well, my concern is that there's projects that are already in the CIP that we don't have enough bond authority for. That's the I don't know how many $1 million question, but that's the question, is there's not, we're apparently, based on this, we're gonna have to go back out for more bond authority even to finish the police crime forensics lab.
Mayor, Councilmember Tomalchoff, I believe we have capacity for the crime lab, but you're correct in that I think in year 3 of the 5-year forecast, we would need to go back out to the community for an increase in the public safety bond capacity.
Right. So that's my problem is that we've got, I mean, and some of these I thought, like, the Foothills, public safety building renovation, I thought was underway essentially, and I see there's carryover money, but the real money for the project isn't available till fiscal year 2030. So, I understand, but I mean, we have had this conversation before. I think our officers are getting, they only have to do it twice a year, if I understand it correctly. So they can do that during times when it's not hot outside, because they can choose, as long as they do it twice a year. And that some of them are already going to indoor ranges. They're in plain clothes, but they're allowed to go to indoor ranges and do it if they do need to do it when the weather's warm. And I'm willing to have the discussion, but I feel like the discussion belongs in the next set of what we go out for bond authorization for, not right now, because we've got a full slate of projects in here that we don't even have enough authority right now to pay for. So that's where I'm at with it. And it's something that we haven't heard. It's not in the Gripstick Master Plan. It's not already in the CIP, so I understand there's a lot of competing priorities, but these are essentially projects that there's been consensus on that are in here. So I wouldn't want to replace something that there's consensus on with something new. I think for me, it belongs in the discussion when we decide what we're going to go out for to fund projects 2030 and forward from that. Thank you.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, it seems like Councilmember Tomachoff took all my talking points on that subject, so what she said, and just to summarize, I think we discussed this thoroughly back when the idea was presented in workshop. There really isn't a need for it. Public safety hasn't been asking for it. It's not part of our regional training program. The potential of being reimbursed for it from the federal government, in my opinion, is shaky at best. The federal government doesn't always come through with its grand plans, much less its promises. And, if we remain a blue state with a red administration, there's no telling how and where we'll be penalized for doing that, which is entirely up to our voters. To me, honestly, it feels more like a vanity project than a necessity. I'd be concerned personally, too, about putting it into a bond election unless it was a standalone, because I wouldn't want it to draw votes away from necessary public safety projects. And it was mentioned that there is a new ask in the capital plan from public safety, but I didn't hear what that was. Thank you.
All right, well, I'll respond. I disagree with you completely. Is it working? Okay, I can't hear it. Disagree with you completely. Blue state, red state makes no difference. DOD, you have a signed contract, you have a signed contract. You can shake your head, no, that's up to you.
Not with this administration.
The fact is, I'm speaking, the fact is it's not in there because it didn't look like we were ever would get a chance to get it. If DOD does what they said that's possible, they've already done the program up in Washington. I went up and toured it myself. And not only that, but we end up with a facility that we can train our officers more frequently, keep them more proficient, keep them safer, and keep our public safer. I don't want ever a situation where an officer shoots somebody because he wasn't able to control his firearm as well as he could have had he been more proficient. My point that I was making earlier is I think that we need to look at it, we need to do it. I don't have a problem in the world having a bond election specifically for a shooting range. But my intention, my hopes would be is that DOD would pay for it, we wouldn't have to. I think at the same time, simultaneously, I think we need to run an opportunity where if they don't, then we can still have it. Our city managers, their city before he came to Glendale, found a need for it. A lot of cities are finding a need for it. Our officers deserve that. Our citizens deserve the opportunity for them to be proficient. And all it takes is one lawsuit to make this thing where it would have paid for itself completely. So I would, Mr. St. Jean, I would ask our police chief if he's in the audience. Is he here?
Mayor, no, he's on vacation today.
On vacation, okay. I guess maybe if he's not here, then I can't ask him, but I would ask our city manager currently. What did the former city that you worked for, what did they do and how did they work this out, and how did they feel that the shooting range was beneficial to them?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So when Gilbert did their comprehensive public safety training facility, they did a business case analysis of what our needs were currently, where we had unmet needs, or we had, through the use of other facilities with other agencies, it was becoming very difficult for them to stay certified on their sidearms, and we had no options for rifles and annual proficiency testing. And so it was part of that overall project scope for the facility, short and long range for their sidearms as well as rifles. Having the indoor facilities did give them the opportunity to have a more controlled environment to do shooting, testing, and scenarios in a lot of different types of settings. Dark, they can fill the room with the theatrical smoke to limit visibility. Give them a lot of options, and the range does get a heavy amount of use by Gilbert as well as surrounding agencies that don't have access to a range like that.
Okay, and so your city at the time felt it was necessary, correct?
That is correct, Mayor.
Was that bonded?
Yeah,
And
yes,
how,
it was, Mayor.
How did that bond, when you put that up, how did that go?
Oh, boy. Pulling from memory, that was back in 2018, I believe. I believe it passed with almost 70%.
All right. All right. And again, I'm asking this council to think about the opportunity that we have to keep our officers safer, our public safe and safer. Having the opportunity to go to a private shooting range twice a year doesn't keep you proficient. Does not. It doesn't give you the opportunity to train properly. I'm just saying, I think if we don't seriously look at the opportunities right now, I think it's gonna bite us in the butt one of these days. So I know you have
Yeah,
responsibility.
Mayor, I mean, first of all, I absolutely want our police officers to have every single tool and access to every single thing they need to be proficient. So let me just clarify that. That's not what I'm saying. But my point is, we just went out for bonds in 2024. This wasn't something that was on the list of something that was needed. So this is a new discussion. And for me, somebody would have to tell me, what are we not going to do on this list that we're going to do this instead? So, I mean, I'm open to that discussion, but this is the money, these slots are all filled, is my point. These slots are all filled with other things that a lot of them we told the voters we were going to do with the money. I mean, I know that the bonds were worded where we can make changes. I understand we could do that if our priorities shift, but this discussion, there's a lot more to this discussion than whether or not our police officers need access to this. Okay, where's the money going to come from? I think we're way better suited, because this hasn't even started yet, to put that in, and I wasn't suggesting that we go out for bonds solely for a shooting range, but if you want to put that question in the package of bonds for every single item in here that's blue that we're going to need more funding for, I'm willing to have that conversation, and I think timing-wise, that makes a whole lot more sense. Feel free to continue the discussions with the Department of Defense or Department of War, whatever they're calling it, and see if you can get it grant funded. We've got time to figure all of that out before we need to start figuring out what we're going to put on the list for bonds that we need, you know, I haven't added this up, but it's quite a bit of additional funding to finish this project list for public safety. And my opinion is that's where this belongs, is on that list, not bumping something in the next 5 years or 4 years off of the list that we've already kind of planning and is underway to do. That's my position on that. Do you want
To be clear, I was not proposing that we take money that's currently there. My suggestion would be that we add that to a future bond for public safety. That's what I'm suggesting.
Okay, I
But if we don't
support that,
start the
Mayor.
discussion today.
All right.
Mr. Baldenegro.
Thank you, Mayor. I think one of the things that we need to be very careful of is when we don't put ourselves in their shoes, meaning the officers, the chiefs, the sergeants, commanders, all the way down. And it's easy for us to say, well, we'll just figure it out. We'll just figure it out. We'll plan it when it's cooler months, which is like 3. And in those 3 months of the year where we have the best weather in the world, we have everything else going on. And we push everything out, further out, further out, further out. And then all of a sudden, we're in a situation where those other 8 to 9 months where we don't have better weather, we're trying to force everything into a smaller window of time. That's very difficult, very, very difficult, especially with we try to do what we can for our officers and everyone else that we have to train. It's easy and we're all guilty of it. We'll get to it. And it's not easy when we have, the window of time has diminished and we're stuck. And now those people having to do that hard work, that hard training, intensive training, it's on their shoulders again. And I don't want anybody to think that, we're making it sound easier than what it is. No, it's hard. It is hard. I think we need to take, figuring out the money part, figuring out the bond part, figuring all that part is difficult. But I also think that one of the very, very hard parts of it is the timing of it, the planning of it, the scheduling of it. Emergencies come up, events come up. We have to take everyone, they were going to go training, but now we have to take them over here because there's something else came up and they have to cancel that training. Having I believe, a facility like that where we could make rescheduling easier, quicker and more convenient for all of our officers is a really, really good thing to have, because then we're able to, obviously, the logistics of it all, but also that the officers and everyone that's families of officers and everyone else that realize, okay, they really are doing everything they can to make sure that our officers are adept with new technology, new equipment, new everything, and that we're also not forcing them and hurry up. Where it's like, no, take your time. We understand life happens, rescheduling happens. We have a situation right here, and I'm not knocking Chief Brandt, but he's not here because he's on vacation. This may have been the only time he'd been able to take vacation, and we say that all the time. There's never a good time for construction, for surgeries, for emergencies, for vacations. There's never a good time for any of that stuff. Especially with the public service, we have to do what we got to do every single time when something comes up. I think if we have a facility like that, where then we can kind of like reschedule it easier to our convenience and for the officers and for everyone involved, I think that's a really, really good key thing to think about before we just decide to, be very, very no. It's part of the conversation. And again, not to dismiss the conversation about the money and the bond and everything else. I get it. I understand that. But having the ability to be able to let the people doing the training reschedule if they have to, or to adjust that into their life and to adjust that into their everyday schedule that we don't know anything about, I think we owe that to all of them, every single one of them. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I got out of that.
Me neither.
Are you supporting the concept?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, Mayor. Mr. St. John, what is the closest municipality that has a shooting range like this?
Mayor, Councilmember Conchas, Peoria has an indoor shooting range, but I believe it's fairly small, maybe 1 or 2 lanes. The closest shooting range that would be comparable to what the mayor's suggesting we build would be Shooters World, which is a private indoor range a few miles from here.
Would the city be able to do a contract with Shooters World in order to enhance scheduling and to ensure that there's reserved time for the Glendale Police Department?
Mayor, Councilmember Conchas, certainly that's a conversation we could have. I'm not aware of any other municipalities who have done that. So we would be marching down new ground, but we're happy to do that.
Thank you. And then the last thing that I'll say is, it sounds like there is definitely some consensus in the council, and the mayor it definitely is leading the charge on this. So I think there's a real opportunity for us to include this project if the majority of the council would want to, either in the police crime lab bond in fiscal year 30 or in the fire station 1510 in fiscal year 30 as well, because if the majority of the council wanted to have it, then it would be interesting or good to actually add it to something else that we're already doing. It's not something that is a priority for me, but I understand that if the majority of the council wants that, then I would suggest adding it to one of those two projects. Thank you.
Mayor, just, to kind of clarify maybe the process. If we have a consensus of the council to add this project, what we would do is work with Public Safety and Mr. St. John to determine an estimate of the cost of the project, and then work with facilities on the timing of it, how much time will, and engineering, and how much time will it take to design it, and those kinds of things. And then Budget and Finance will work on coming back to you to say, well, then this is how we would suggest to fund it, and with what bond and what timing and all of that. That's kind of what we would do on your behalf, is look at, okay, where would it make sense? What's the timing of it? How does it fit with the rest of the bond program? That's part of the analysis we could then do for you. We just, at this point, we just need a consensus from you that this is a project you want added, and then we'd work on how to fund it and the timing and all of that.
Mayor, may I?
Go ahead.
Before we give a consensus on this, I think could we carry the conversation over to the CIP follow-up? Because I'd want to hear from the chief on how much a priority it is from Chief Brandt before we move ahead. He's not here to speak on this today, and I think we should hear from the chief before we decide. There's a lot of projects already in blue on here, and I mean, if this is something that the chief feels is a priority for his department, I'm absolutely willing to put it on the list of blue boxes on here for future bond. But I feel like, at least for me, I'd want to hear from the chief before I would give my go-ahead. And not that I'm saying kicking it down the road, but the person who's responsible for the men and women in our police department and making decisions about budget priorities is not here to speak today.
All right, and I will tell you a conversation I had with him about a week ago. I told him that I intended on pushing this project forward, and he said he was really glad to hear that. That was the conversation, nothing more. And again, if DOD does sign a contract that they will pay for this construction, we can't really afford to put this off for 3 or 4 years. We need to have it in the move, and then if DOD says, yes, let's go ahead and partner, then it's already in the process. If not, we can slow it down and work out the financial parts for ourselves, but if DOD wants to do it, then we need to expedite it. That's all I'm saying.
So-
We have a real chance, and anybody in business would grab a chance like this for somebody to pay for your facility and pay operating costs. Would be crazy not to take advantage of it if we can make it happen. If we can't,
Well,
then it's a different situation, but I'm
Right.
just saying.
I understand that. We're not adopting the CIP until May.
Correct.
So,
I-
I mean, it's
and
not like
again-
having the discussion at the next meeting is going to make any difference, because we're not going to be able to adopt this until May, so.
Understand. So,
Yeah.
I was in DC 3 weeks ago. I talked with the gentleman, Mr. Moriarty, and they are still in discussion. It's not been inked yet, it's not been signed. So they still haven't made that decision, but if they do make that decision, we're in the fast lane at that point.
Right, once
So-
we've adopted the
Right.
CIP.
So I'm just asking the council, have an open mind. Let's do what we think's best overall for our officers, for our citizens, for the taxpayer. If we get sued and we lose a large lawsuit because of something that could have been prevented, well, shame on us. But I don't think we have to do that. I can tell you the chief is in support of the concept. Now, I can't tell you that he's in support of what the costs can be, because I don't know what the costs will be. I don't know. But I certainly would be more than willing to work my tail off to make sure that in bond election to work my butt off privately to make certain that it passed. And I would hope that everybody would do that. Hold on, I haven't gotten over here yet. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Based on what I've heard here today, it boils down to either the DOD helps pay for it, or we go out for a bond in order to get it done, and we put it out to the people. So again, the citizens would make that decision. So I could support moving forward with putting it into the CIP, and then having finance come back to us and tell us how that could be funded. But continue, I agree with the concept that if we can get the funding through federal government, we should pursue that rather than just drop it at this point in time. So I would be in favor of not delaying any current projects, but possibly putting it into a future CIP and bonding if that is the way it has to go. And then the people would be able to decide.
Ms. Guzman.
Yeah. I also feel the same way that Vice Mayor Melnar feels. I don't see any reason why we couldn't move it forward and include it in the CIP with, I mean, she's going to come back and finance is going to come back and give us the information. And if DOD does not pay for it, I don't have an issue with putting it out as a bond issue either.
Thank you. All right.
Mayor, I apologize. Can I just provide a point of clarity?
Go ahead.
The Department of Defense cannot pay for the construction of this facility. That would run afoul of MILCON rules. What they can do is enter into a facility use agreement with the city that reimburses the city for the negotiated costs of us building the facility, understanding that they would be entering into a use agreement. And that, to the mayor's point, that can include ongoing maintenance and staffing for that facility over a given period of time.
Right.
But we have to upfront the money.
Right. We still have to build it.
Yeah.
But anyway, with the contract, it's a little bit easier to know what you're doing. Okay, let's go to Mr. Baldonegro.
Thank you, Mayor. Assistant Chief Ochoa, I respect and trust did you serve for many years? You service at this police department. Would you be willing to give us your input or feedback on this, sir, if you're comfortable enough with it? I didn't mean to call you out like that. I just thought, you're right there. Why don't we ask you?
But in all fairness, after you introduce yourself, can you tell your history with this project?
Certainly. My name's Ernie Ochoa. I'm Assistant Chief, Police Chief. I did go on a trip with the mayor to Spokane, and we did look at Fairchild Air Force's base is indoor range. A couple years ago, I think it was, by now, yeah.
Seems longer than that.
Yeah. And what was the question, sir?
Your feedback or input on this discussion, if you have any sort of your personal feelings or professional feelings specifically.
Sure. I don't want to speak for the chief, but would an indoor range be something that the police officers would use? For sure. With the heat, the ability to shoot at different times, that is a positive. I do know the chief has some other priorities that he would like to see accomplished in the CIP. So where this stands with, in alignment with your guys' I guess, policy, yeah, it would have to be.
Yeah. Okay. So, and nobody wants to put you in a position that. My question, though, and it was brought up earlier about maybe partnering with a private shooting range. Can you talk about the opportunities that shooting range that we looked at has that a private would not have available to us?
Yeah. So the shooting range that was with the Spokane Sheriff's Department and Fairchild Air Force Base was indoor due to their climate up there. They also had an area where you could bring a vehicle in with and activate certain lights that are realistic that we would see on scene. Backlighting that makes it extremely difficult when you're addressing targets that are in front of you. It had the ability to have moving targets, running man targets, which is a benefit. They had turning targets. You could adjust the closeness of the range, the different yardage, which was nice. So it had a lot of different, it's all computerized, obviously high tech, all kinds of different lighting conditions. You can you can associate with. You can bring vehicles in, such as SWAT vehicles. You can train to shoot around vehicles in an environment.
Much more realistic.
Yeah.
Mayor, may I add one more?
Go ahead.
May I also ask, please, sir, having a facility like that at our use, how much of a beneficial, convenient would it be to all the officers to be able to get them in and out, to circulate them in there with rescheduling and scheduling and everything that, you know how it happens, things go. All of a sudden, you're finding out, in 2 weeks, we have this mega event that we didn't know about. We have to pull everyone out of that scheduled planning and for everything we're doing. Having a facility like that, how beneficial would it be to the department to be able to get them to reschedule, to get them conveniently so that we're on track?
Yeah, it would be beneficial to have our own range that we could have access to basically 24/7, day and night. So it would be very beneficial.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
Mr. St. John? Thank you, Assistant Chief Ochoa. I appreciate you. Mr. St. John, in preparing for the CIP presentation, have you had conversations and worked on this presentation with Chief Brandt?
Mayor, Councilmember Conchas, yes.
And just for the audience, there's only one new additional project that is being proposed, and that's something completely different in terms of public safety, the preemption of traffic signals. Is that correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Conchas, yes.
Did the Chief Brandt ever mention this shooting range as part of a proposal to insert into this presentation?
Mayor, Councilmember Conchas, we have had conversations about the indoor shooting range over the last couple of years with Chief Briggs, with Chief Brandt. We've all kind of fallen in the same space, which is kind of similar to what Assistant Chief Ochoa just said. Yes, of course, having the facility provides a benefit. There's a positive to it. But when we look at our bond capacity, when we look at the chief's priorities, public safety priorities across the board, the city's priorities, then we begin to ask ourselves, when is the right timing for a project like this? And that's, frankly, that's why it hasn't been built into the CIP at this time, is we just don't feel like we've got the bond capacity or the internal resource capacity, personnel capacity, to pull this project off successfully. So Councilmember Tommelchoff mentioned that we've moved out the renovation of Fire Station 155 Foothills Police Station. That is primarily because of resource constraints, not bonding resources or money resources, but internal personnel resources. So over the last several months in building this CIP, public safety has worked with engineering, with transportation, with water services on all the priorities, budget and finance, of course, to try to figure out where do these things line up? How do we sequence these projects so that we deliver the projects the council makes priority, like the crime lab, in a timely fashion?
So is it safe to say that the police chief, Brandt, had the opportunity to add the shooting range in the CIP presentation here today, but has elected not to?
Mayor, Councilmember Conchas, I would agree with that statement, yes.
Thank you. And the last point that I'll make is, in my experience as a council member, I have been through the city protocol of talking to directors and to city manager staff, and I know that when I have spoken to anyone that is not a director, I have been called into the city manager's office in order to talk about that. And so I just wanted to say that I think it was completely inappropriate for us to ask the assistant chief to come up and talk, and I appreciate your perspective, but I think that should not have happened, and I think that we should continue the protocol of council members in the council talking with directors and with city management leadership. Thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to move on. You guys can go back to this if you want to. I want to talk about the forensics lab. So thank you, Assistant Chief Ochoa.
So Mayor, before we leave this aspect, could I ask one more question? Or?
Go ahead. Go ahead. I think we've belabored it to death, but.
Mr. St. John, how long have we had the gripstick facility?
Mayor, Councilmember Turner, we opened the facility in 2006, so it's been nearly 20 years.
Nearly 20 years. And over those 20 years, and the initial planning for it, and over those 20 years, has there, to the best of your recollection, ever been a request to build an indoor range at that facility that we utilize and share with the entire West Valley?
Mayor,
Make available?
Councilmember Turner, no.
Okay, thank you.
Back to me, thank you. I did want to talk about the forensics lab. So I see that there's,
Well, hold on a second, because we really do need to talk about this. On this item, do we have a consensus for this to be moved forward? On the shooting range?
to bring back a discussion about cost before,
Well, you said you wanted to move on.
well, I thought we were going to get the consensus at the end, but okay.
Well, I'm talking about this portion, and we still
Okay.
gotta do a consensus at the end anyway.
Right, well, the consensus is the consensus I'm asking to have staff bring us back the cost of the construction cost, an estimate on operating cost.
They already actually should have all of that in place. We do. That's already been done.
Well, that's why I don't want to give a consensus till I know what the numbers are.
So again, the question is to get it on, and we still have to make the final decision down the road. You said that yourself. I'm talking about
Right.
today, can this be added on?
They can bring it back as a line item to reach a consensus at the follow-up to the CIP meeting when they can give us the numbers. I thought that's what we were getting a consensus for, is to add it to the list of things they're gonna bring back, where we can say, okay, here's an approximate cost, here's the bigger ticket issue, I think, is operating.
Ms. Rios, do you
operating
have that
costs.
information available right now? We had all of that a year ago.
Mayor, members of the council, yes, I believe some analysis was done. We have some numbers, and yes, again, the purpose of this workshop is to kind of get your priorities and those types of things. So if we have a consensus, then we'll go back, take the numbers we have, update them, work with public safety, and bring back to you, a proposal of how we would fund it. Again, knowing what we know about Department of Defense, there'll probably be two different options, right? One is, okay, if DOD funds it, this is kind of how it would look, and if not, this is how it would look. That's what I'm taking away from the discussion, and if that's what you'd like us to do, then that's what we'll do.
Right.
That's
Right.
all
And-
it is at this
and
point. The
then-
decision would be made later, but
Once
for
we have
now,
the
it would be,
proposal.
And
that's what we would
so
do.
that's what I'm asking. Yes?
To bring
yes.
us the proposal, yes.
Okay, we do have a consensus.
Okay.
Now with your next item.
Yes, the forensics lab. So we have, I know we're going to be getting another memo here pretty soon, but we're kind of actually starting to move on this, I believe. And so we've got $4 million in carryover and $4.5 million for fiscal year 2027. So, I'm sorry? Well, I'm looking in.
61.
I'm looking in the budget book. There's page 197.
On your slide presentation, this is on page 61.
Yes. It's on
Yes.
page 61, but I'm looking at the, it's the same. But my notes are in my book, not on the slide, so. But according to this, I know, and I brought it up before, that looks like we're, as of right now, today's cost anyway, $7.5 million short. And you said that we may not have to, I'd hate to have to stop this and get more bond authority to finish it. So can you talk a little bit about, you kind of touched on it a little bit more about whether we need to condense the timeline down and kind of where we're at and what we can be anticipating happening in fiscal year 2027?
Mayor, Councilmember Tommelchoff, or Vice Mayor, Councilmember Tommelchoff, what I can say is, understanding that Police Crime Lab has been a council priority, we will make sure that we have the bond funding capacity, or if we need to use something different, that we have the finances lined up to complete the project. So understanding the $7.5 million in FY30 is in blue, which means we don't have the bond capacity. I would anticipate that would actually be part of the FY29 expenditure. I think we'll be 2 years in construction, and then we can make decisions after the construction of the facility on when we want to buy certain equipment for different disciplines within that building. For example, you wouldn't want to buy the DNA equipment 2 years before you hire the scientists to start doing DNA, because that equipment's going to depreciate and it's not going to be getting used. So we're going to sequence the purchasing of various capital items, infrastructure for the building, over a period of time, probably 3 to 4 fiscal years. So I think the $7.5 million that's sitting there right now, and again, these are all conceptual numbers until we go out into the market and understand real costs. I think that $7.5 million is really indicative of other capital expenditures that we would need to put within the facility for it to be a full functioning 7-discipline crime lab, if that makes sense.
It does.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. St. John. And then I have one other question on the carryover for the police evidence storage facility. And as far as, it's my understanding it's complete, or is there money sitting there to do additional work on the facility, or what's the $5 million?
Mayor, Councilmember Tom Wolchoff, it is a complete project. We do not have any plans on spending what's listed in the carryover.
So I guess leads me to my question then, because initially and I think that's where the confusion came. I know you and probably Ms. Wantanko recall, it was living as one project in the CIP for a number of years, and we were confused. The previous council and some of the ones that are still here were confused that we were proceeding with the forensics lab when we were really proceeding with the evidence storage facility. Because they were a one-time, the same project, can that money be moved over to the forensics lab? I mean, it's gonna have to go somewhere, right?
Mayor,
Or do we just
Councilmember
let
Tom
it sit
Wolchoff,
there?
it's the same bond funding. And so we have approval from our community to pay for a crime lab, so we could move that over to that project, crime lab
Okay.
project.
All right, thank you.
Mayor?
I'm sorry, Ms. Wojtenko is saying that the number of carryover is less than 5 million.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, so obviously when we do carryover and as part of closeout on projects, that number will change as we finalize the project. Engineering has been finalizing that. But if there are leftover bond funds that either have been issued or were to be issued in a future year, we can use those funds for other public safety projects.
For that, do we have a number on what the actual carryover, or closer to the exact number anyway?
I don't have that number with me, but I think we can get it here by the end of or by the next time we come back.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Mayor?
I think Councilwoman Guzman was
Go ahead.
first. All right, thank you. Mr. St. John, can you tell us a little bit more about the main public safety building renovation? This is definitely a priority for me. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yes, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Conchas, at the main police facility, it was originally constructed to house a patrol division. We made the decision several years ago, it was before I was the police chief, to move that patrol division out of Maine PD and separate them into Foothills and Gateway Substation, 83rd Maryland, 63rd and Union Hills. Looking at our growth in the far west area and infill growth within the main service area, I will say, of our community, the chief and I have talked about, and this started with Chief Briggs, but we started talking about moving a patrol division back into Maine PD, moving IT to a different facility, and then bringing that building back to its original construction intent.
Thank you. And then on the other question is in terms of the Fire Station 154 construction. Is there anything on the CIP for any type of renovations or any type of plan for the old, the current station that will then be an old building once we construct the new 154 in Mission Park?
Mayor, Councilmember Conchas, no, there is no planned project for that existing facility. We would have to likely build something in once council makes a decision on what you all would like to do with that facility.
Thank you. And so to that point, I don't think that right now or this year is the time to make those decisions, but I would like to see in a future either a CIP or at least a plan for what is going to be happening in there, because is there currently any ideas for what's going to be happening in that building?
Mayor, Councilmember Conchas, we have floated several ideas, one of which is to maintain it as a public safety building, a resource building for both police and fire, which is something that we need right now. We've also talked about not keeping that as a public safety facility, but maintaining it as a city facility for parks and recs or, community services, whoever might need the space. And then we've contemplated selling the parcel and the building.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Back to the crime lab. I see here that there's a carryover of 4 million, and then in fiscal year 27, 4.5 million. What exactly will that money start on the crime lab? What will it allow you guys to do?
Mayor, Councilmember Guzman, we are preparing an RFQ to go out into the market and secure a design firm and a construction manager. This money in FY '27 and the carryover will allow us to design the facility with leftover money for sure. It won't be $8.5 million to design the facility. Typically, it's about 10% of the construction cost. So if it's $52 million, expect to pay about $5.5 million for the design. But that funding is intended to get us through design so that in FY '28 and '29, we're in construction. We do believe it's probably 2 years of construction, 18 months minimum.
Okay, all right, good. Another question. On, it shows here, it's on page 61, it says Police Station West area. Where is that?
Mayor, Councilmember Guzman, in the original plan, that would have been part of Fire Station 1511 near Saraville and Northern Avenue out along in the 303 annexation area. But in conversations with the chief, we feel we really just need a little bit of office space, so maybe a couple of offices with computers at a fire facility in the far west area. Because we're moving that, but our intent is to move a patrol division back into Maine PD. So that changes the service area for Gateway and Foothills, and Gateway can extend further west without us needing to build a new facility out there per se, just a little bit of office space in a facility that is built for the fire department.
So are you talking about the station that they're looking to build near the airport? You would have an office in there?
Mayor, Councilmember Guzman, no, this station would be off of Saraville and
further
northern,
out.
over by the new Desert Diamond Casino.
Oh, okay. And then also, there's one, hold on one second here. There's another one that talks about, it's a fire station, it says west area. It's not the 1510 that you're talking about, it's a different one.
Mayor, Councilmember Guzman, that is 1511. Yes, it's the
1511, okay.
Saraville and northern location.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I have one more question. And the parcel she's referring to is one of the 5-acre parcels that was part of the Wolf Logistics and annexation? Thank you, okay.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Tomachov, correct.
Thank you. The project 26009 is a firing range redesign. And I guess following the long discussion we just had about a firing range, what is that project, and is that going to be, there's money allocated, $700,000 for fiscal year 2027. Would that be paused until we decide? I'm just curious how that fits into the discussion that we had.
Mayor, Councilmember Tomachov, we've learned that part of the MRF facility located north of the Gripstick, which is directly north of our firing range, has had shrapnel found in the parking lot and created some issues for our employees that work out of that facility. So we engaged a design firm through the Gripstick to come in and tell us, okay, how do we keep our ammunition from rolling out into their property, potentially causing harm to someone? And they built a design for basically what are bullet catchers over 3 of our most heavily used ranges. So that would be the rifle range, range A, and then range B and C, which are handgun qualification ranges, and then you can, of course, do judgment shoots and all kinds of different things. Range D, which is the furthest east range, we've decommissioned for now from shooting, and we're using it for other tactical training. But this project funds constructing those bullet catchers over ranges A through C.
Okay, so it's something we need?
Yes.
All right, very good, thank you.
And if there are no other questions on public safety, I will turn the presentation back over to Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. So up we have Parks CIP. Parks is 99% funded by GeoBonds, both parks and open space, and then a little bit at 1% of grants. Some of the projects include Saguaro Ranch Master Plan Build-Out, Dunbird Conservation Park Improvements, and Rose Lane Pool Replacement. And here are the funding sources for the parks program. The 10-year park CIP total is $186 million. And Parks has quite a bit of new projects they added this year. Are there any specific questions on a park project?
Thank you. I went back to the previous year's, I'm trying to look at, I got too much in front of me right now. The previous year's CIP and Heroes Park Aquatic Center, the funding for that, the Rec and Aquatic Center, was, it's the same project number, but it was all of the funding, it was showing at the time $42.5 million in the out years, years 6 through 10. That's where it was in last year's CIP. I have that, I pulled it out of the last year's book. Now, in this year's book, it's showing funding in fiscal year 28, 29, and 30. That was not part of, that's not what was showing last year. So I'm curious, first of all, is how did the decision get made to push that money forward? Even though I know we need bond authority, but I mean, it's been living in the CIP in years 6 through 10. And now it's living at least half the money. Now the cost has doubled, by the way, in years 1 through 5 of the CIP. How did that get changed in this version of the CIP?
Mayor and Council, Councilmember Tomlichoff. So the change from last year to this year was we've gone through a conceptual study on the Heroes Aquatic Recreation and Aquatic Center. And moving through that study is the reason for the change in the amount as an estimate, and then as well as looking at including it in the CIP plan to assist with the potential bond election this year.
Okay, but isn't there some sort of council discussion that needs to happen? I mean, I think we need to be very strategic in how we phase in the parks projects, and at least the way I understand it, that needs to be part of the discussion today. Is what the council priorities are and how we want to phase the projects. And I know I've gone back through the last several budget years, I think 5 budget years at least, and the lion's share of the parks funding has gone to Heroes Park, and this council's been committed from day one to finish Heroes Park, but they've received $33, $34 million in funding between the lake, between the soccer fields, between the addition to the library. I don't know, I think that shows in parks funding, and it's a little over $3 million to add on to a building. And it's a shame because the previous council member, I know some of us tried to have a discussion with her about going back out to her constituents and reestablishing the priorities that were at the time 20 years old, whether they wanted to move ahead with the building, because we knew at the time, starting in 2019, 2020 timeframe, that inflation was becoming a bigger and bigger problem, and that the cost of the building was likely going to make the biggest jump more than the lake and some of the other things we were doing because of the materials and supply lines and other things like that. And to move the building ahead, which that person was not willing to do. And now we're looking at $83 million cost of building the building instead of $43 million. But my point is, I think there needs to be, while all of the projects are important, the bond's going to require voters all over the city to get these bonds passed. And voters all over the city are well aware of the amount of money that's already been invested in Heroes Park, more than anywhere else in the city over the last 5 years. And I think we need to really kind of consider where it was before. This change was put in here, bumped up 5 years ahead, and look at fulfilling projects around the city ahead of moving ahead, maybe somewhere out in year 29 or something, having money for design so we can be ready in year 2031. But parks bonds are not super easy to get passed, and I think there needs to be something in it for everyone. Saguaro Ranch Park master plan is complete. It's ready to go. I don't know why that's, in the out years. I just think we really need to really consider a strategy and how we're prioritizing these parks, because you're going to need buy-in from people all over the city. And you can see for years there's been zeros, all over the place in parks, everywhere, but mostly in one part of the city. That's not going to get the bonds passed. That's what my concern is I'm absolutely committed to getting it done, but if the bonds don't pass, nobody gets anything. So I'm really concerned about that, and I was a little stunned to see that with no discussion with anyone, at least on the council, as far as I'm concerned, that this money for Heroes Park was pushed into the first 5 years of the CIP, where I feel like strategy-wise, in order to get buy-in from the community, we need to be delivering on parks all around the city, not necessarily my district, but in the Cactus District, the Ocotillo District, the Saguaro and the Beryl District. Those residents know they've had no money spent on their parks for the past 5 years. And we need them. We need their buy-in to get these bonds passed. So I really think this needs to be pushed back where it was in last year's CIP. That's my opinion. I'm only one of us. And that we really need to have some serious discussions on what we're going to move ahead. I think Saguaro Ranch Park is a really important park in our city. And take Thunderbird Park out of it, because that's a different set of different funding source. So that's not part of this discussion. And Thunderbird Park's been waiting. I've been on the council 11 years, and Thunderbird Park's been waiting this whole time. So I mean, to be able to deliver things for your residents, you have to get in line, and you have to be strategic on how you do it. So waiting is how this works often. But I think for specifically, Saguaro Ranch Park needs to be moved way up. And then a lot of these other small parks that are, $800,000, $1.5 million, $900,000, that are going to deliver new playground equipment. One of the things we talked about, I think is really important to include, and I don't know where it lives in these lines, is accessible and adaptive. Moving, at least delivering one of those parks in every district, maybe even more than that. But that is something I think I've made it clear, and I know, John, you and I have had these discussions. We should be doing that for our residents. Every child that is a child of a taxpayer in Glendale, whatever their disabilities are, should be able to play in our parks. Even the surface, we've decided on a policy for that. And that should be rolled in here somewhere. And it also, I think, would speak to a lot of people when we go out for bond, that we are trying to deliver an experience that any child in our city can enjoy our park. I think that should be a mantra of this council, honestly. We should be committed to delivering that. So I think we have a lot of work to do to discuss where this is gonna live, this Heroes Park, if we push it back out and reprioritize this list. And the last thing I want to say about it is, it doesn't really meet the council policy of maintaining existing assets before we deliver a new asset. We've adopted that as a policy as a council, and that kind of flies in the face of it because it's a new asset. And I absolutely, whatever mistakes were made by previous councils as far as where the money went instead of Heroes Park, the residents should not be punished for that, and I absolutely believe that. But how we phase these projects in is going to be really critical in order for the voters to understand that we want to deliver nice parks all over the city, and we're willing to invest in the first 5 years of the CIP in parks all over the city. Otherwise, I think that we're going to have a real hard time getting these parks bonds passed. Thank you.
Mr. Turner.
Mayor.
No, Mr. Turner, then.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember Tomachoff. And I think, everybody's going to expect me to come up and defend Saguaro Ranch Park and to move it forward in the plan. I thought it was more forward than what we're looking at today. Correct me if I'm wrong. But not because it's a park in my district, and I've never been about bringing things back to the residents of my district. I've been about bringing things back to the residents of Glendale. And this is a regional park. It's centrally located. The appeal to our residents is citywide. It's in the core, but it's not just citywide. It's valley-wide, certainly West Valley-wide. This is a endeared park for lots of families. And when we look, if you're surfing social media and things like that, you'll see just a myriad of ways that people use this park that they don't use others for, photographic opportunities, for celebrating the important times in their lives and their family and those sorts of things. Council member makes an excellent point about our policy of taking care of what we already have, maintaining our existing infrastructure, and which includes our park buildings and park infrastructure before we take on a bigger load. If we can't take care of what we already have, then we should be thinking very hard about adding more to our portfolio of what we can't take care of. So, and I also, there's not just for me, but, you know, I think other council members and certainly in the press over time and on nextdoor.com and all, we see that residents are not satisfied with they love the park and they appreciate what's there, but they're not satisfied with the level of care we've been able to provide it and the modernization and all that's available. We have we have the Saguaro Park Master Plan, as was mentioned. We know what we want to do there. I'd like to see us get into the design phase of it and keep moving forward with it, because it's a benefit to our residents across the board, and it's in keeping with our policy of taking care and preserving what we've already invested in. And we've seen what happens. I won't remind anybody of a struggle we went through here a couple years ago with a park asset that we didn't maintain, the previous council had maintained over the years, and that asset no longer exists. So I just would echo her concerns. I appreciate her concerns. I know other members would be concerned about this as well, that we do need to move Saguaro Ranch Park forward as far as possible, and it needs to be an important part of our bond request if we go out for that.
Ms. Guzman.
Mayor, yes. I just want to give a history of Heroes Park. In 1998, excuse me, Heroes Park was placed in the CIP, 1998. The former Yucca District Council member, Joyce Clark, who was not on the council at the time, and neither was I, we both fought to keep Heroes Park, the land, from being sold by the city to a developer who wanted to build small matchbox houses on it. We won the fight, and the city had to build Heroes Park. That was 28 years ago. It still remains uncompleted now for an entire generation. My sons were 2 years old when we moved there, and this was happening. They're 30. In 2006, the Foothills Recreation and Aquatic Center opened at a cost of almost $14 million, which was a lot of money back then. Council's reason for moving it forward was the population growth of the Cholla District. In 2006, the population in the Yucca District was around 40,000. Today, in 2026, 20 years later, the population of the Yucca District is around 69,000. These numbers are, if you want to check, in citydata.com through IA search. Western Glendale has exploded with residential growth. There are at least 15 new apartment complexes in the Westgate area, adding an estimated, I'd say about 7,000 residents. Stonehaven has added 1,300 new homes in addition to 6 new subdivisions of 60 homes or more, adding an estimated 4,600 new residents. There are also 4 infill projects in the Yucca District that will bring between 1,500 and 2,500 new residents in the next 4 years. I would say that using the same rationale of population growth back in 2006 demands that the recreational and aquatics facilities at Heroes Park need to be built, and there should be no more delay. Heroes Park is the only regional park in that area of West Glendale, and the residents want the park finished. I understand that the cost of construction has gone up. What hasn't? Do we actually think that that the cost will not go up even more if we delay it another 10 years? At that rate, it may never get built. So I know that we are going out for a bond election in the fall for parks and libraries this year. And if it passes, I would like to request that Heroes Park should be a priority for the completion. We have waited long enough.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Thank you. I don't think anybody, me specifically, is saying that we don't finish Heroes Park, and this council has shown over and over and over again we're committed to Heroes Park. And I'd like to point out, though, that during those 20 years, the council member who was representing the Yucca District voted for a ballpark, not to finish Heroes Park, voted for a lake at the ballpark, not at Heroes Park, and voted over and over again for things that did not benefit the residents of the Yucca District. That is why the project was delayed. And then a recession ensued, And as soon as some of us got here, we had, at the time, the council member that represented the Yucca District wanted to build a book ATM. And we only had about $2 million in DIF money, but we were committed to delivering something for the residents of Yucca. And at the time, all we could afford was a modular building, which was scoffed at, she wasn't on the council yet, as a trailer. And as time went on, more money became available, and we were committed to delivering a library. We were committed to delivering, I thought we should have delivered the building first before the lake, and the building first before the soccer fields, for reasons we know are because of inflation. But I'm telling you that all I'm saying is that we stick to the original plan, is that we prioritize money around the city, because the residents in the Yucca District alone are not going to be able to pass the bonds. That we stick to the priority that we had in last year's CIP. There was no discussion, and this is the position that you put us in, to have this discussion of now saying, well, now we're going to move this up without even any discussion. Now it's got to be pushed back where it was. Is put it in the out years in 2031, maybe put some money in for design in year 28 or 29 to start on design for the building, but deliver something for residents around the city who have parks that are way older than 20 years old, much, much older than 20 years old, that are literally almost falling apart. The playground equipment in some of these parks is actually possibly even dangerous with, falling apart metal. So I'm just saying that the residents all over the city have been waiting, not just the residents in Yucca District, because we went through a recession, money became very scarce, and that they deserve a nice park too. I think the goal is to deliver for everyone, but to be strategic in what we're delivering around the city, so that people understand that there's going to be a reason for them to vote yes on these bonds. That, I think, is really critical. And I understand, and if I was the Yucca representative, I'd be reading the same statement, and I understand it, and I don't want the residents of the Yucca District to be punished by some poor decisions that were made by leaders that came before you. And it's not fair to them. I agree with that. But there's parks in Ocotillo and Cactus in all of the districts. A lot of my parks are HOA parks. It's not really as big a problem in Sierra Verde or in Arrowhead Ranch as it is in other parts of the city, because we've got a lot of parks that the HOAs own and maintain. But citywide, we have a lot of work to do on parks around the city, and we have an obligation, I think, to put a little bit of pause on spending money on Heroes Park, because all of the money has gone to Heroes Park for the last 5 years, and deliver some projects around the city that are going to serve residents in other parts of the city, and that are also going to serve families with children with disabilities. And not even just the families with children, but caregivers of children who have mobility issues that can't navigate our parks because of the sand. So I think that's an important part of the discussion too, is that we have an obligation to deliver that around the city and make those the priorities while we're still planning to do Heroes Park. And like I said, I don't object to putting money in there, maybe bumping that $2.5 million back to fiscal year 29 and then 2030, something like that, where by the year 2031, we have shovels in the ground, we can start on the building. But I think starting on the building and putting it in years 1 through 5, when all of the money has gone to Heroes Park for the past 5 years, is a mistake. And like I said before, if the bonds don't pass, nobody's getting anything. Thank you.
I do have a question. You made a statement that there's a metal falling apart at a particular park. If there is, I need to know where that's at. We need to get that. No, you made a statement the metal's falling apart. If it is, we need to close that. If it's unsafe, we need to close that. Do you know if there's an area that's unsafe? Okay.
Mayor, council members, yeah, of course, there's consistent inspection of all parks, and there are times, yes, when there needs to be things that get shut down for a short period of time while parts are replaced, and there's maintenance that is required. But it's not to a point. If there is a safety issue, then that is addressed by either immediate repairs or having it closed off to not be a safety issue.
All right, well, and I just going with her statement, it sounded like there is something that's unsafe right now. I want to make sure if it is, that that's shut down right now.
Mayor, no, I don't believe we have anything that is shut down completely right now.
Okay. All right. And then secondly, this conversation seems like it just keeps coming back all the time. I'm a Yucca resident. Moved there in '88, in fact, in 98. And my daughter is one of those kids that grew up without having a park plan. I mean, there just was nothing available. I understand the concern that we don't have enough money to do everything we need to do. We have done work on every park in the city of Glendale in the last 5 years, different money from different buckets, and I agree with you there. But all of the parks have had things done to them. There are some that need priorities, and I agree with you there, Councilmember Tomachoff. At the same time, there were promises made years and years and years ago that it's easy to come back and say, well, you know, we decided we don't want to keep that as a priority. We're now going to change again. I actually think what both and what all of you are doing, fighting for your district's honorable. I mean, I love it because that's what you should be doing. You're representing the very people that put you in office. We have to come up with a better solution that we don't have to keep doing this. And I think what that is going to actually require is every council member working their tail off to make sure that these bonds do pass so we can get the things done that we have to get
Absolutely.
done. You know, we've had some occasions in the past where council members haven't gotten real active in bonds. And it's easy to blame somebody else. It's our responsibility to make sure they pass. So I don't want to get in the middle of who prioritizes. I can tell you, Heroes Park, there were promises made that I specifically remember over 20 years ago that still haven't been fulfilled. At the same time, I know there's other needs. I know if you go up to the trail system in the mountains, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done up there. But again, you know, it is what it is. So, statement, go ahead.
Yes, Mayor. I want to say that I appreciate that there is $10 million in here for the Rose Lane Aquatic Center. And I really appreciate that because in the conversations that I've had with residents, especially about the Heroes Park Recreation and Aquatic Center, the same conversation has come up with Glendale residents about spending a lot of money there, and it's a beautiful park. I actually would love the same kind of Ramada system and structures that they have over in the Cactus District, because that's where we had my grandma's 70th birthday. And it's just a really great opportunity to have family together, to have the grills, to have all of the amenities. So I really appreciate the leadership of the council and of the mayor and of the previous council members for making that park a destination for people regionally from different parts of the West Valley. And of course, you know, fighting for our districts is that Rose Lane Park improvements. I also want to appreciate the previous councils for the things that they've done at Rose Lane Park. I would like to see, you know, better Ramadas. I would like to see it kind of essentially the same kind of model that the Ramadas are at Heroes Park. And I see that in CIP PK 22007, Rose Lane Park improvements is $1,386. And so on face value, if I was to take just this slide, number 66, to Cactus District residents, then they would say, why is there $1,386 for Rose Lane, but $83 million for Heroes Park? But they probably don't understand the previous amount of dollars in improvement that we've put into Rose Lane, which is probably a big ticket item. But I do understand the disparity and understand the sentiment that when I knock on doors and I talk to residents, they say, you know, there's a lot of investment into the West Glendale, which is great because it's expanding. And thank you, Councilwoman, for bringing us those stats about the growth in your district. And I really appreciate learning more about your district. And so I think that the way that I would like to move forward is not quashing down Heroes Park Recreation and Aquatic Center, but uplifting everyone else up. And so when we determine how much money we're going to go out for bonds, if we can look at how we can be more equitable in terms of investing just a little bit more money into each district. I calculated it, it's about $13 million if you divide 83 by 6. If we could find ways and work with the council and with council members to see if there is other needs that they have that can also be comparable to $13 million so that there can be a more equitable system of this plan, especially when we go out to bonds, because I don't believe that if Cactus District residents saw this, that they would be in support of putting $83 million into an aquatic center at Heroes Park. But I also want to be a team player and understand that we are one community and one city and one Glendale and not 6 individual communities. And so I would like to see more investment into the other districts while not squashing the idea of the Heroes Park Rec and Aquatic Center. Thank you.
Mayor?
Go ahead. Lauren?
Oh, I thought you were pointing at him. Okay. Well, I would like to see Saguaro Ranch Park funding for design, whatever the first step is, moved into fiscal year 2027 or 2028. I guess we don't have any funding for it right now, so we'd have to have the bonds passed. But I'd like to see some of this stuff moved in. I mean, I'm just going to go kind of line by line priority. Saguaro Ranch Park is basically almost a state park, really. I mean, there's a lot of history there, and I think it's really important that we don't that we make that more of a priority, especially since the work of the master plan is done. We're ready to start. We just need a funding source. So I'm going to suggest that I believe it probably should be in 2028 because we're not going to know if we have the money till almost the end of fiscal year 2027. Whenever the soonest we could put it in there. And then the ADA upgrades, I think, should be more than $1 million. I don't know. I thought that we had the whole discussion about park surfaces, and we decided we wanted the whatever that rubberized stuff is in all the parks. And I thought the difference in cost was $1 million. It doesn't seem like $1 million in ADA upgrades is going to get it done for us. So I'd like to have a little bit more of a discussion about that, because I know we had adopted that policy that we wanted a adaptable surface in our parks.
Mayor, council members, if I may?
Sure.
On that particular question, each individual park project that has a playground replacement, that's where we included the additional funds to use port in place as opposed to engineered wood fiber. So the ADA, the line item that you're discussing is for other ADA accessibility projects within the park system. So the rubberized port in place additional funds are really going to be allocated in each individual park project.
Okay, that makes sense. And then for project numbers 27012 through 27041, those are all basically park improvements that are at least being proposed to be in the years 6 through 10. I'd like to, if you could, and hopefully there's a consensus for this, work with park staff and bring us a list of priorities and move some of these projects up so that this money is available to deliver some things to parks around the city that have been waiting, some of them even longer than 20 years, to have the parks renovated. And my point is, even in my district, in city parks, the parks are new. The playground equipment is old, it's not in great shape. And I've talked to, Mr. Kennedy knows what park I'm talking about, and they've been out there to look at it. But I mean, some of the playground equipment is literally almost falling apart. It's old. And my point is, there's parks in the city that are much older than that, probably 3 times that old, that need some attention. And so I don't know, I don't want to sit here and go line by line and say, move this up, move that up. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe working with the council members, they can say, I see Ventranos Park on here. I see parks all over the city on here, but they're not going to get anything until at least years 6 through 10. And I think that's a mistake. So I'd like to have some more discussion on how we're going to prioritize those parks and leave the lion's share of the money for Heroes Park parked in at least in year 2031 and then 2032 to 2026, so that we can get a handle on some of this other needs around the city before we start on Heroes on the building. Thank you.
I appreciate Councilmember Guzman's strident defense of the Heroes Park, and I just want to make sure that we all understand we have spent more on that park in the last several years than we have anywhere else in parks in the city. So we can't just look forward. We also have to understand the investment we've been making in it recently. I also appreciate that there's been quite a bit of growth out there with Stonehaven and with apartments, but as was mentioned by Councilmember Tomachoff, in these HOA areas, they have HOA parks that are available to those residents that aren't available to other residents from outside the subdivision. Stonehaven even has a swimming park of some sort, some kind of an aquatics facility there, along with the pocket parks throughout. So it's not as if there's nowhere for those kids to play. There is. Residents citywide have invested not just more recently in Heroes Park, but they invested heavily into Camelback Ranch, which is what sucked the money out of Heroes Park from getting developed in the orderly fashion that was originally planned. And those were decisions that the previous council member that's been referenced supported. And we're still paying for that. So it's not that we haven't been funding Heroes Park. It's not that we don't want to continue funding Heroes Park, but we've done a lot, and we do have to take care of all of our residents and all of our parks citywide. And though we have spent money, as was mentioned by Councilmember Conchas, in Rose Lane Park, it really is a pittance to what we've spent over at Heroes. And his residents and the residents that use that park are entitled to their fair share. And I think that's just what some of us are looking at. It's the fair share. And if things have been on hold, or they were on hold, not during our term, but prior at Heroes Park, it's because in large part that was what the council member, her priorities at the time were. She was happy to have the money spent on Camelback Ranch instead of in that park. And we're doing our best, even before that council member came back on the council, to move forward with that park, to get the library up and open, and to try to determine what the residents needed the most and the earliest. And so it's not that we're not going to spend money at Heroes or that we're finished with it. It's just we have to take care of other things, in other parks in the city as well. So it's time to move some of those forward and maybe take a brief breather on Heroes while we fulfill our commitment to maintain the assets that we already have before we add new assets. Thank you.
Mayor, I do understand that I was not here on the council at that time when those decisions were made. I probably would have made different ones. But what I'm hearing also is that the city's not, isn't going to, it doesn't, to me, it seems like we've waited so long. The city has promised to get this park finished. It doesn't seem to be a priority anymore. It is to the residents of the Yucca District. When I was out canvassing, that's all they ever talked about. They still bring it to my attention now. I understand that there are other parks around the city that need work also. I'm not saying that those parks aren't important, but when the city makes a commitment to complete a park, it should follow it through, all the way through the completion. Postponing it another, up until 30 and 31, I mean, it's going to cost even more. If we keep pushing it down the road, the cost of it isn't going to go down. We all know the way the economy is now, it's just going to increase. So we're going to be costing the city even more money. Yes, we don't know whether the bond will be approved or not. Mayor, I want you to know I'm going to work my tail off to make sure it does. But I just feel like postponing it is going to cost the city even more money. And I don't think that that's something that the taxpayers should have to pay for because we can't complete the project.
Mr. Milner.
Thank you, Mayor. Based on the presentation today, Ms. Rios, do we have an estimate to fulfill these commitments, say at least for the next 5 years, what kind of a bond would be required?
Mayor.
I'm talking about the dollar amount.
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Melner, or Vice Mayor Melner, members of the council. We estimate in the neighborhood of 172 million would be the question needed at this time. The way I arrived at that number was to take what is in the current CIP, or the proposed, this proposed CIP, which included the investment at Heroes, and then I just increased it by about 10%. Because we have bond costs and other things like that. Will that be enough? I think there was some discussion earlier about public safety and potentially the need to go back out for public safety sooner than we wanted to, or sooner than we anticipated. And we're going to make the same statement here in that costs do increase over time. And so sometimes we do a bond, as we did with public safety, and then, 5-6 years into it, we realize we need more authority. That's a reflection of inflation and the cost of doing these projects, which in many cases was very unprecedented and just wasn't anticipated. So will the 172 million last for an entire 10 years? I hope so, but we don't know for sure. But that is in the neighborhood of what we're thinking it will be.
Okay, so that's actually for the entire 10 years, not just for the first 5 years. Is that correct?
Mayor, members of the council, that's correct. 10
Okay.
years.
And I know that there are a lot of other priorities. And as this goes to our Park and Rec Commission to discuss a bond and to our bond committee, perhaps we could have some discussion about prioritizing some of these later projects to move them forward a little bit. I know $172 million is a lot of money, but I've also seen other cities our size who have been successful in getting even larger park monies approved by the public. Again, I think it all boils down to how we engage in that process. And I think if we present it properly, I think we can meet the obligations that most people here on this dais today, I think, could agree with. But it may require increasing that bond a little bit more. And I wouldn't be opposed to doing that. But my next question has a lot to do with that, how you would answer that. Do we have under our current policy of not increasing our property tax for purposes of bond and only levying to keep the dollar amounts even, do we have capacity to issue those bonds under that policy if we were to increase that 172? And even at that 172, do we have current capacity estimated with our growth and everything else? Do you understand what I'm asking? I think you do.
Mayor, members of the council, Vice Mayor Malnar, I do understand the question. And the answer to it is, over time, you have the capacity to do everything that you would want to do, right? It's just kind of like, over time, could I take a vacation everywhere I want to in the entire world? Sure, if I had all the time in the world. But in the shorter run, the policy does create a restriction on the amount of bonds that we can issue every year. So approximately, at this point, we can issue approximately $55 million in bonds every year. So when we look, yes, at the city's authority, we don't have the authority right now for parks. If we gain that authority, then we have to look at what you're talking about, which is capacity. And when we're talking about capacity, now you have to prioritize between all of these different bond-funded projects, including public safety, including streets that you talked about earlier, including libraries, parks, and general government facilities, which included things like the operations campus that we had on the ballot last year. So we can't do everything all at once. Even if you had the 172 million, for example, for parks, we can't just issue 172 million all in the same year because we don't have the capacity in property tax to pay that back. The bank is not going to loan you more money than it sees that you have the ability to pay back. And your policy does restrict that. So what that means is we can do it, but it's going to take longer. Does that answer your question?
Not the answer I wanted, but yes. I believe that we have a commitment to move forward the Heroes Park. And based on this conversation, you've calculated it out currently, I would guess, that we can do these things that are on this plan based on that limitation of the not raising property tax. Is that correct?
Mayor, members of the council, we update it regularly, and I think we're in the process of updating it, but I'm fairly confident, yes, that with the way we have it laid out and the timing, we're in the ballpark of being able to do everything that we gave you in the 10 years. There are some other options, and we do have a plan to also come back and talk to you a little bit, probably in the fall, about what some other options might be. But for now, because this is the plan that we're adopting, I would say we're pretty confident we can fund these projects. If the bonds pass, we can fund them with this timing.
Okay.
The question is, if you wanted to do them earlier, what would we do? And we plan to come back and tell you what your options may be to try to get them done earlier. Then it's going to be up to you to decide if you want to do any of those things.
Okay, thank you. And with that point, I believe kind of sticking with our plan as is, we kind of need to see where our bond committee and our Parks and Rec and library bonds, where that all goes later in the year. And if we do go out for bonds, how that all fits in. So I guess my point is I don't want to create throw up everything in the air and try to recreate it. Because I know that's what we're talking about here. I do believe we can prioritize a few projects and move them forward as we have discussions about the bond, maybe increase the bond dollar amounts, and hopefully be able to meet some of those other project demands. But as is, I would like to move forward with the Heroes Park in its place. And the other items as well. There are parks in my district that are definitely on the out years that could use some benefits sooner. But I also realize that we all have to kind of wait our turn. And I'm okay with that, the way it's set. Thank you.
Ms. Rios, in the past years, you've always given us this really cool graph that shows our current bonds, bonding capacity, the years they fall off, when the new ones. I haven't seen that this year. Could you have something like that for us next meeting so we could visually see what's going on in the maximum that we could get if we go out with these bonds? Everybody has an idea what we have to work towards. I think it visually might help us all.
Yes, certainly we can do that.
Okay. All right. You're next, and then you.
Mr. Kennedy, following up on what Councilmember Tomachoff said about last year's CIP versus this year's, and particularly with the Heroes Park Aquatic Center, is it my understanding that it was about $40 million less last year, or can you help me understand what the difference is between the proposal and what we have now?
Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Conscious. Yeah, so prior to this year, the amount that was included in the CIP was more of a placeholder. It was an order of magnitude that was set, several years ago. Within this last year, we have commissioned a conceptual study that further defined the programming of the project, and that's where the new budget figures came from, that programming concept study.
Okay, thank you. And the only point that I wanted to make on this is that, yes, we want to make sure that we're fulfilling promises, but the promise was made at that conceptual price of about 40 to $45 million, and now it is essentially almost doubled. And so I think that that is, you know, a decision like that the council should make, is that if we're okay with it being 83 rather than the 43, I think that that's a decision that we should all say out loud, that we're okay with increasing it by $40 million, because that's a really big jump, and that's a really big investment. So that is my point, is that it was a conceptual at the 43 or the $40 million range, and now it's about 83 million.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess for me, the biggest part that I'm not super happy about is the fact that, you know, from the time we saw this in last year's CIP and the years and basically the prioritization of the project and the cost was $44 million in last year's CIP, and with zero discussion from the council or no consensus from anyone, the project has not only doubled in price, but accelerated with no discussion. And I just think there should be more of a process in play for some sort of discussion to take place before it just shows up like this with double the price tag and accelerated. I think the council should be way more informed on the front end of a decision like that before this gets where it is right now. Thank you.
Mayor, the Councilman Conches mentioned the promise of the conceptual amount. Well, the promise to the residents of the Yucca for the last 28 years has been to complete the park.
Mayor, if I could, I just want to remind everyone that the city and the council has invested more in Heroes Park over the last 5 years than anywhere else in the city. So there is a commitment, and we put our money where our mouth is. It was the order of things that was decided by the previous council member who's put us in this position where there's still no rec center and the cost has doubled. Inflation has cooled off substantially. I just looked at it just to remind myself where we were a few years ago. We were almost at somewhere around just under 10%, I think, for inflation. So now it's down to about 2%. So, I mean, hopefully there's not another pandemic. Hopefully something like that. There's no catastrophic event that causes inflation to go crazy like that. But that's kind of what happened, and it was by postponing it and delivering, you know, basically wanted to deliver on 20-year-old statistics from people who maybe had changed their mind by the age of their kids and where they were at, that they really wanted the rec center first, which would have been, you know, we had discussions up here on this dais about moving the rec center up in front of the lake, in front of the soccer fields, and thereby saving $3 million on an add-on to the library also. We had those discussions, but they were nixed by the person who represented that district, and so here we are. But my point is, there's got to be a better way to do this than the way it was done this time. Thank you.
Mayor, I understand that the decisions, you know, from the prior council member were different from what I probably would have done. But I'm the council member now. I'm the representative of the Yucca District. I have spoken to several of my residents. I understand that, you know, inflation and all of that, but you're asking the residents also to postpone this into the 10-year plan. You're talking about, at that point, another, add 10 years to 28 years, 38 years? When is this park ever going to get finished? Plus, if we're pushing it out, who's to say it's not going to cost $120 million by then? I mean, as a business owner, if I need to purchase a huge piece of equipment, I'm not going to wait 10 years to buy it. It's going to cost me double, triple the amount. I got to bite the bullet and do it now and get it at a cheaper rate now. Inflation, yes, it is higher now. I would imagine that the difference between the 40 million and the 80 million was after they went out and did the conceptual design, that they realized, okay, it is going to cost a lot more. Why they didn't have that figured out from last year to this year, I don't know. But yes, it is going to cost more, and it's going to cost even more if we wait even longer to finish it.
Okay. What else have you got left on parks?
Mayor and council, this is it for parks, and then from here, move on to parking lots.
Okay. Do we have a consensus as this is right now to move forward?
Yes.
There'll be a later discussion about prioritizing when the
Right.
bond committee starts meeting, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next.
Excuse me, let me just scroll over to parking lots. Here we go. So parking lots is funded 100% by general funds, and their main focus is existing parking lots and garage repairs. Here's the funding source for parking lots. As you can see, it's a general fund, capital project fund, and the total 10-year CIP is $21 million. And here are the 3 parking lot projects. Does anybody have any questions regarding these projects before we move on to libraries?
Yeah, Councilman
Thank you.
Tomachoff.
On the, I'm trying to find what the corresponding slide, but under the change document, under parking lots, you have arena parking lot lights. Which parking lot is the arena parking lot? Aren't there multiple arena parking lots?
Mayor, members of the council, yes, there are multiple arena parking lots. I think Ms. Wojtinko can probably give you more detail, but yes, there are more than one.
Vice Mayor, council members, the city does own and maintain several parking lots out in the Westgate area. We refer to Lot G as the arena parking lot, and this project is to improve those lights out there.
Is Lot G the one with the mechanical arm on it? That's, which one? Or is it on the other side, on the east side of the arena?
It's on the east side of the arena.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Councilman Conscious.
Yes, I would just like additional information in the future about a map of where these CIP PL1 9059 renew parking garages and lots are, if you have that available in the future.
Vice Mayor, council members, Councilmember Conscious, in the description, it just specifically states the lots we're looking at for FY27. You'd like a map to go with it as well? Is that correct?
If I don't have the description in the PowerPoint, but if it's in the council packet, I can go ahead and look at that myself.
It is in the detail slide.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, go ahead on the next item.
Next up, we have library. Library is funded by GEO bonds, and some of the projects include the main library renovation, Velma Teague redevelopment, and Foothills Library renovation. Here you can see the majority of the bonds, or the funding is from bonds, and then we have a little bit of development impact fees. And this slide shows the 6 library projects. Do we have any questions on library before we move on to landfills?
Vice Mayor.
Councilmember Turner.
The Velma Tigre development at 12 million, is that a placeholder at this point?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Turner, yes, that's a placeholder.
Thank you.
We needed some amount.
Thank you.
To give you time to determine what you wanted to do.
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. Can we get a timeline about when are we going to make those decisions about the Velma Teague Library?
Mayor, members of the council, we have an architect working on some renderings, and so we'll be bringing that probably back in the next 60 to 90 days, I would think.
Thank you. So there's carryover of about $4.5 million on Velma Teague. And so depending on what's decided, is the thought that would go into fiscal year 27 for design for whatever, whether it's a new building, whether it's renovating the existing building, whether it's moving it over to the promenade, whatever decided, is that money to start something in 2027?
Mayor, members of the council, my understanding, and we can get maybe some more information from Ms. Wojtenko, but that funding was there for more mechanical and infrastructure types of needs at the library as it exists. And so there may be some of it left over if, once a decision is made about what to do, but some of it is needed in the shorter run just to keep the library going as it is.
Okay.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, Councilmember Tomaszov, as Ms. Rios stated, approximately 5.5 million was in this year's budget for infrastructure needs at the Velma-Teague Library. You see approximately 4.5 million in carryover. We're trying not to spend that money until a decision is made. We're currently replacing a cooling tower at the library and its service entrance. The main electrical service that comes into the library is on order. Those had to be replaced. So those are being done. We're trying not to spend any money until a decision is made on the future.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have landfill. Landfill is 2% of the fiscal year 25 proposed CIP. 100% is funded by their user fees. Landfill is focused on program vehicle replacements, which follow industry standard replacement cycles. Landfill also has a North Cell landfill project, which includes North Cell phase construction, the landfill gas extraction system, and stormwater controls. As I previously mentioned, the 100% of the landfill CIP is funded by their user revenue, and the total 10-year CIP is $49 million. Any questions on landfill? All right, now we have facility maintenance. Facility maintenance is 7% fiscal year 27 CIP. The facility maintenance program is funded 53% through general fund, 19% through enterprise fund, which is water and solid waste, 15% of general obligation bonds, and 13% special revenue funds or transportation sales tax. Facility maintenance focuses on improving existing assets through programmatic replacements, and they also follow industry replacement cycle. Some of the projects include Camelback Ranch improvements in the field ops campus, and they're requesting 4 new projects. Here are the different funding sources that make up facility maintenance projects, and their 10-year total is $123 million.
Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Regarding, and I've met with and talked to some of you about this, regarding the Glendale Ops Campus and the bonds that did not pass. And the council, there was I think a 30-some page presentation, I want to say, in Ms. Fontaine, was it 2021? Where the council adopted the plan, said, move ahead, let's go, let's do this. And then in 2023, I believe, the city manager at the time came to us with a proposal to add $22.5 million to the city hall renovation. And because I'm a nerd, I went through the minutes and asked multiple times, where's this money coming from? Now we know where the money came from. It came from the money that we had thought was going to deliver the ops campus for our employees that work on that campus. Well, it wasn't given an actual answer. We had other resources, is what we were told. I don't know whether we would have made that decision had we known we were literally steering money away from something we'd already committed to delivering for the people who work at the ops campus. But I'm committed to delivering this ops campus to the people who work there. I think everybody up here has been over there and understands what the working conditions are over there. We don't have any bond funding for this, but I think we should talk about a way that we either get started on it and then try again for bond funding, or we commit one-time money to a one-time investment in our employees. I know we've got more than enough fund balance to go ahead and cover. I know it's going to be broken up among the enterprise funds of the people that work there are going to be, and I think if I remember correctly, Ms. Wojtenko, I think we were just for the sake of argument using $3.5 million from each of the water services and transportation and the different departments for their contribution So the city, the general fund contribution is somewhere around $20 million. I feel strongly that we should move ahead with this. We've got money that's not subject to, it looks like based on this chart, not subject to bond funding to move ahead with design, and I don't know where we're at, even whether that even ever happened. But I would be perfectly fine with using excess fund balance to deliver this project, because it's something that we committed to do, and we did not understand that we were redirecting this money away from a project that the council had already committed to when we were asked to do that. So that's where I'm at. I don't know whether we can, try again on the bonds, but whether or not we do that and whether or not they pass, I think it's something that we should deliver for the people that work at that ops campus. It needs to be done. That's it.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll move on to.
Wait a minute,
Oh,
hold
sorry.
on. I guess you can bring it back to us, what our fund balance is, what our required fund balance is, and because we have to put it in the budget if we're going to spend it. I mean, or at least show it in the CIP that it's something we're committed to. And I don't know whether everybody else is committed to moving ahead with this and figuring out how we're going to fund it as we go. But, I mean, we've already had, we had a lengthy discussion and approved it, and the funding sources, all of that, and then weren't really told that we were redirecting money to another project. I mean, we're approving it when we adopt the CIP, but I think we need to have a discussion about not pausing it, but just moving ahead, because the money in fiscal year 2027, I believe, was for design. And, is that right?
So, Mayor, members of the council, I just wasn't sure what your question is, but you're correct. We have money in the current budget and in next year's budget to continue design. We don't have enough bonding capacity to fund it now, in the construction phase. We did plan, or are planning to have this as one of the things that the bond committee discusses and then brings a recommendation back to you whether to include it on the fall ballot, and whether, again, it's your decision whether you're going to have a fall ballot and what items will be on there, but it is something that we have on the schedule to speak to the bond committee about so that they can make a recommendation regarding that. And then I believe there's also an outstanding council item of special interest on this. We have a architect working on concepts and order of magnitude costs to update this and update you. So for now, this is just a number sitting here as a placeholder. And then, as you said, then we have to make decisions about, do we want to go back out for a bond? If so, how much? How is it going to be split, the funding between the various entities that use the facilities? Those are all discussions that will need to take place in the future.
So I guess my point is, though, we're gonna keep moving, and we're gonna kind of figure it out as we go. And I just wanted to put it out there that and like I said, I've had this discussion with some of you already. Weren't surprised by this, that we keep moving ahead and we figure out how we're going to fund the 20, whatever it is, I don't have my glasses on, the 20-some million dollars, whether we go back out for bond, and whether we do or we don't, whether they pass or they don't. My position is that we build it anyway. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor. In terms of the ops campus, I believe that it would be in the interest of the council to look and ensure that we put it back on the ballot. And the reason is because, in terms of the disparity between the different recorders, the current recorder rejected 838 signatures per 100,000, whereas the previous one rejected about 396 for every 100,000 cast. And I believe this bond question number 2 failed by 12 votes. So I think it would be in the interest of the council to look forward and to put this back on the ballot. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we have drainage. Drainage is 8% of the fiscal year 27 CIP. And the drainage program is 47% funded with flood control general obligation bonds, and 48% of funding from grants, and then 4% is funding from the stormwater fee. Some of the projects include Bethany Home Road from 43rd Avenue to 51st Avenue, and the drainage program focuses on designing and constructing flood-controlled drainage improvements, and they work in coordination with internal and external partners, including Maricopa County Flood Control District, and also with the arterial reconstruction program with transportation. And here are the funding sources for the drainage projects, and the total 10-year CIP is $58.4 million. And this slide lists all of the proposed drainage projects. If we don't have any questions, we'll move on to airport. Airport is 2% of the fiscal year 27 CIP. And the airport is 85% funded by grants and 15% funded by transportation sales tax. Some of the projects include the Enviro Clearance Parallel Taxiway, South Apron Reconstruction, the Construct East Side Apron, and the runway lighting and signage rehab. And here are the various funding sources for the airport projects. And the total 10-year CIP is $52.7 million.
Mayor, I had a question on drainage before we moved on. I'm sorry, I spaced it out. The
Drainage at the airport?
What?
Drainage at the airport?
No.
No, go ahead.
No, on page 91. Bethany Home Road drainage, 79th to 51st Avenue. Is that, it's under fiscal year 27, is that when they actually are going to start the project?
Mayor and council members, Councilmember Guzman, no, the project is starting on Monday morning, 9th. Hayden is going to break the ground. We inform both council members if they want to organize some groundbreaking ceremony. But they will start down there from the catch basin on the Grand Avenue, and it will go all the way 47th Avenue. The main intersection is 47th and Bethany Home, and that one will be done or kind of in coordination with the water services project that is going on at Bethany Home.
Okay, so you said Monday morning?
Monday morning, yeah.
He's
Next
on the
week?
wrong line.
Yeah, March 9th.
He's 43rd to 51st.
Are you talking about, which one are you talking about?
On, it's CIP Drive 27043, Bethany
Yeah,
Home Road.
he's talking
drain-
about the other one.
Yeah, I'm talking
Maybe I
about
got it wrong.
79th.
I'm referring to the Bethany Home, 47th, all the way to the Rose Lane.
No, I'm talking about right here, it
83rd,
says
Kelly.
79th Avenue to 51st Avenue.
Correct, but that's a more.
Georgie, it's the
Yes.
one that's highlighted. It's the new project for fiscal year 27.
Here we go.
Okay, I'll let John Murphy.
Good morning, council, mayor, council. That project, what we did there is the one that's highlighted on the screen there
Yes.
from 79th to, I believe that's 51st, is we've moved that forward a little bit. You see that 101 in there. In 27, that's to study.
Oh,
So
okay.
back, what was it, October, November, we had that, a lot of rain, like it was a deluge of rain.
Yes.
And that area took a significant hit.
Yes.
And so what we decided to do in this go-around with the CIP was to advance that forward to study at the moment in hopes that we'll be able to mitigate some of the problems in between and then have the main project happen when the 43rd run on the storm drain finishes.
Okay, yes, that's what I was asking. Thank you.
Any questions on airports? Were there any questions?
What, airport?
In terms of the airport, I wanted to know if about the Westmec building. Is that Westmec building, is that privately owned? And are they still going to be occupying that building?
Mayor and council, I do not have all the information that you're seeking. We can come back with that. It is on the airport property, and it is,
It's outside the fence on the corner, and I believe Westpac owns that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
I have a question, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Project, the New River Channelization Project, is that an at-grade crossing? I haven't heard, what is that? What is the New River Channelization Project?
Mayor and council, the runway safety area that is south of the runway, some of it is in the river. And this was a project that's been on the books for a really long time, for at least 20 years that I know of. It is to channelize the river so that we can claim some of the runway safety area from the river.
Oh, okay, so like redirect the water. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Oops, wrong direction. Last one we have is the Arts CIP. The Arts Capital Improvement Program is 100% by the Arts Fund, and the Arts Fund is funded through 1% of construction completed in the current fiscal year for eligible CIP projects. Some of the projects include the Municipal Arts Program and the Arts Master Plan. As I mentioned, here's the funding source. It's all Arts Commission, and it's just under $1 million. And this slide lists the three projects for the Arts Fund.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
I have a question. And I'm not familiar with how all this works, but, you know, we decided not to do that art piece on the new city hall, and we talked about doing the digital signs. Is that something that needs to go on here?
Mayor, members of the council, yes, that's correct. If you were to decide that you wanted to do some type of digital art, then we would need, I guess, a consensus at this point to go look at what that would cost. I don't believe you'd be able to do it for this same $600,000 that's currently budgeted. So we'd have to do some type of study and probably figure out, you know, what that looks like and how it would work and how it would be funded. But at this point, there isn't a budget for a digital piece of art there. That's
I could be mistaken, but I think all of us kind of felt that that's the direction we were wanting to go.
Yeah, it was.
I felt like we were just kind of waiting for somebody to give us an idea of the cost and everything.
Yeah, I believe that was correct. We all were in consensus that we thought it was a great idea that we put up a digital sign there that we could use throughout the year with different announcements, things that were going around the city, and we could also put our art up there, depending on
I don't want to
the.
call it a digital sign. To me, it's a great big framework. I don't want to call it a digital sign. It's not art, it's a digital sign.
Well, that's what they call them.
So
But yeah.
you guys, the council has a policy and a process also with the Arts Commission. So let me get with your, arts is under economic development. So we'll get with him and talk through what that process looks like and let you know, because I'm not as familiar with it. But there is a process by which it gets approved or added to this also by the Arts Commission. So and recommended by them. So let me look into that a little bit for you, and then we'll get back to you about how that process would work.
Vicki, to be clear, the arts basically isn't the final approval. They make the recommendation. We're the final approval.
That's correct.
Which is why we had a little bit of pushback when we talked about this, because we didn't like what they had recommended. I think what the council, and if anybody disagrees with me, certainly speak up, but I think the council felt like we could get a lot more out of having a very large thing similar, not exactly, but similar to what By Resort currently is displaying now, that could show local artist works. It could show events going on at City Hall. It could be utilized for lots of different things, recognizing cancer and Alzheimer's and all the different things. I think that was what we
Yes, it
really
was.
discussed about pretty thoroughly. So again, I kept waiting for somebody to come back and give us a price, and it hadn't happened.
Okay, yeah, we'll work on that.
Okay.
Sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's on. I mean, but digital art also, I mean, there's all
Right.
kinds of digital art, so
Right.
it would also have, like something on display for, whatever.
Capacity for all that.
Okay. My question's about the Arts Master Plan. It's finished, right? So there was a $100,000 carryover from the finish of the Arts Master Plan?
What are you asking?
Whoever has the answer.
We'll turn that question over to Mr. Dittrey from Economic Development.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Yes, the master plan has been finished.
Okay, so there's $100,000 remaining that could be used for some other art project, the DCRP art project or something else?
I
Or
believe
is
Mayor.
that money just allocated for the master plan?
Mayor, members of the council, that's carryover, so we can't tell you today exactly how much of it is left, but we can get you that number. That's just an estimate of what's
Okay.
been, hasn't been spent, but we'll have to finalize and get you a number on that.
Okay, but I just wanted to make sure, I thought that that the master plan was finished and we've spent whatever we needed to spend on it. Yes?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
I said we've spent whatever we needed to spend on the master plan. Or you're gonna bring us whatever the amount is
I'm gonna have
that's
to let
left?
you know. I'm surprised there isn't a lower number there myself, and so
Okay.
I'm gonna have to let you know whether, what's been spent, how much, and,
Okay,
and all of that.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things that I'd like to see in the future is more murals around the city of Glendale. So would we need to put that into a CIP, or would that just be something else that is a project or an idea, kind of like a council item of special interest?
Mayor, members of the council, I'm going to answer that similarly to the way I answered the other one. I do believe that if you wanted to see more murals around the city, then yes, you would go back through the process with the Arts Commission of commissioning those and deciding where and all of that, and getting them a recommendation from them as to where to have the murals. And you can certainly talk to your representatives there about what you'd like to see. And then we would need a budget for it as well.
Mayor, Councilmember Conchas, we do have you noticed some of the murals that are going on downtown? Fantastic works. There's a couple more that have been approved by the Art Commission, but if you would like to see more, address that.
All right, what's next?
The last thing we have is I passed out the binders for our next budget workshop, which is Monday, March 30th. And this is our operating budget. So this is the tabs that are in there, the new employees or new position requests, and then when we have supplementals that were recommended for approval and then not recommended. And then we have some budget summaries broken down by the department and then by fund. And then we have a tab for each department for what they requested and how their proposed FY27 operating budget will look. And if you guys review those and have any questions, feel free to reach out to the city manager's office.
Guess we're done.
Thank you.
Okay. Patrick, anything? Okay, being no further business for the council, meeting's adjourned.